I freezing my ass off in a rickety horse cart, bouncing over frozen dirt like a human maraca. 3 months ago, I was just a regular guy who got hit by a truck. Classic ice guy move. Zero originality. And woke up as the son of some big shot duke named Calvin. Sounds awesome, right? Son of a duke? Easy life. Nope. Turns out I'm son number 12. The worst one. The family disappointment. The kid they mention at dinner parties and everyone just goes, oh, that one. So the emperor cooked up this genius plan. Send noble kids to the frozen northern wasteland to develop territory. Translation. Go die somewhere cold so we don't have to deal with you. And every noble family played along by shipping off their most useless members. Guess who Calvin Duke picked? Yeah, me. His personal participation trophy. Dad handed me 800 gold coins, some food carts, 3 elite knights, 10 regular knights, 30 trainees, and basically said, don't embarrass us by dying on the road. Dying in the north is fine though. Father of the year material right there. The north is basically hell, but frozen. Eternal winter, barren wasteland, ice giants up ahead, rebel remnants everywhere. A lovely vacation destination if you hate being alive. I'm sitting there pulling my cloak tighter, still freezing, and I snapped. Where's my cheat ability? Every ice guy protagonist gets one. And then, ding, a robotic lady voice goes. Daily intelligence system loading. Information started flooding my brain. Every single day, this system randomly drops intel on me. Resource locations, people's secrets, even future events. For a guy trying to survive in an icy death zone, this is literally the cheat code to the whole game. Worst case scenario, it tells me when to run. First update dropped immediately. For pieces of intel, number 1. The Emperor's third prince fell into a literal pool of horse poop and drowned. At noon. In front of people. I shouldn't laugh, but I absolutely did. Number 2. Dad just had his 10th daughter. The man is a biological weapon of mass reproduction. Number 3. 3 kilometers west, rare northern crystal cod are showing up at dawn. These fish are insane, delicious meat, and their bones contain stuff that purifies night bloodlines and boosts power. Worth an absolute fortune. This is my golden ticket. Number 4. Knight Roy is putting scorpion poison in my dinner soup tonight. Excuse me, what? I looked over at the campfire where the knights were cooking. There's Roy, squatting by the pot, stirring away with his innocent little face like he's making Grandma's special recipe. Except Grandma's recipe doesn't include murder seasoning. One of my own knights. Trying to kill me. I haven't even reached my territory yet, and somebody already wants me dead. The North hasn't even started, and I'm already on someone's hit list. Fantastic. Then a knight called out, "My lord, dinner is ready." I straightened my clothes, stepped out of the cart, and looked at that big steaming pot of definitely poisoned soup. Everyone was sitting around waiting for me to eat first, because that's the rule. The Lord eats first. How polite. How considerate. How absolutely murderous. I just smiled. So there I am, holding a steaming bowl of definitely murder soup, and I've got 2 options. Drink it and die, or pull a power move. Guess which one I picked? I lifted the bowl to my lips nice and slow, real dramatic, Oscar-worthy performance, then casually turned around and shoved it at Roy. Not hungry. You drink it. The look on this man's face. I've seen corpses with more color. He stammered something about rules and propriety, like suddenly he's Miss Manners. Buddy, you literally put scorpion poison in my dinner. Don't talk to me about etiquette. I said drink it, full boss voice activated. Roy started sweating in below zero weather. That takes talent. Knight Captain Lambert caught on instantly. Smart man, love him already, and signaled the boys to surround Roy. They shoved the soup at his face, and Roy tried to bolt like a cockroach when the lights come on. Didn't get far. Got tackled. Got pinned. Now here comes the juicy part. I asked who sent him, and Roy spilled everything faster than the soup he was trying to avoid. Turns out my dear brother Benjamin, Dad's second son, ordered the hit. His brilliant plan: kill me on the road, eliminate a rival for the family inheritance, and force the family to send another brother to the north as my replacement. 2 competitors gone for the price of 1 assassination. I'd almost respect the efficiency if he wasn't trying to murder me. Oh, and our family doesn't do firstborn inheritance. It's strongest takes all. So even pathetic little me is technically a threat as long as I'm breathing. How flattering. Roy started begging. I was forced. I'll be loyal. Please spare me. Really pulling out the waterworks. Very convincing. Very moving. Lambert. Yes, my lord. One sword swing. One head rolling in the snow. Problem solved. Customer service at its finest. But here's the thing. After Roy's head did its little bowling ball impression across the campground, the mood got weird. Everyone went quiet. Not because they felt bad for the traitor. No, they were looking at that head and thinking, that could be me. Not the betrayal part, the dying in this frozen hellscape part. Because let's be real. Nobody here wanted to come. Every single one of these knights got shipped off to the north because they were expendable. Roy just wanted to go home. And so did every single person sitting around that fire. So I did what any reasonable leader would do in this situation. I gave a speech. A banger of a speech. First, I told them anyone who wants to leave can go. Right now? Free pass. I'll even write a letter to the family. Nobody moved. Because they're not stupid, going back means punishment worse than staying. Classic, the door is open but the hallway is on fire situation. Then I hit them with the real talk. You think you're garbage? The family told you you're garbage. But you earned your titles through blood, sweat, and actual combat. The guys who sent you here? They're parasites partying in castles. I could see their eyes changing. That little flicker. Wait, he might have a point, look. Then I went full motivational speaker mode. What if we actually survive? What if we build something here? The darkness before dawn might be long, but the sun always rises. And I swear by the dragon ancestor, when that day comes, I'm sharing everything with you. Titles, land, glory, the whole buffet. I told them some of them could become barons, viscounts, even earls. From nothing. On this frozen wasteland that everyone else threw away. Dead silence. Wind howling. Fire flickering. Every face a complicated mess of emotions. Then, thump. Lambert dropped to one knee and slammed his fist against his chest so hard I thought he cracked a rib. I swear to follow you to the death. Then another night. Then another. Then another. Swear to follow you to the death. One by one. Every single night hit the ground. Fists pounding their chests like war drums. And me? I'm standing there in the firelight, trying to look like a stoic, noble leader while internally screaming. I literally made that speech up on the spot, and it actually worked, honestly. Best Tuesday I've had since getting hit by that truck. Next morning, my knights were acting like completely different people. Yesterday, they were zombies on a death march. Today, after my legendary speech, which, reminder, I made up entirely on the spot, they were actually doing things. Checking gear, discussing strategy, planning defenses. Amazing what a little motivational chicken soup for the soul can do. But I'm not stupid. Speeches have an expiration date. You can't feed people inspiration forever. Eventually they're gonna need, actual results. And lucky for me, my cheat system told me exactly where to get some. So I marched everyone to a frozen river 3 kilometers west and said, we're fishing. The looks I got. 40-something knights standing on a sheet of solid ice, staring at me like I'd just announced we were opening a beach resort. I could practically hear their thoughts. Great, the useless lord has lost his mind. We followed a lunatic. Lambert, bless this man, my #1 fan, grabbed a hammer and started smashing ice without a single question. The rest followed, mostly because nobody wanted to be the guy who refused and then looked dumb if it worked. Thwack, thwack, thwack. A crack opened up. Dark freezing water surged through. We dropped a net in. Everyone stared at the hole in the ice like it was a lottery drawing. The rope went tight. Pull. Out came a fish. Not just any fish. A shining, silvery, absolutely gorgeous northern crystal cod, flopping around on the ice like it owed someone money. There's actually fish. More? Get more. Don't let them escape. My knights turned into the most aggressive fishermen in recorded history. Grown men in full armor screaming and swinging nets around like kids at an arcade trying to win the big stuffed bear. We pulled out 12 of these bad boys, each one glowing like it was personally blessed by Poseidon. Then one of the more experienced knights recognized what we caught and basically had a religious experience on the spot. These are northern crystal cod. Their bones purify knight bloodlines. They boost your power ceiling. Every knight within earshot stopped breathing. In the south, nobles might eat this fish a handful of times in their entire lives. It's rarer than a humble politician. And we just yanked 12 out of a river because I pointed at some ice and said, dig here. Then I dropped the bomb. Half the fish goes to you guys. Make soup. You'd think I just told them they won the medieval lottery. One night literally started shaking. Why, you're serious? These are northern crystal cod. Southern nobles would kill for this. Yeah, buddy, I know. That's why I'm giving it to you. It's called investment. But sure, let's go with generous lord. Sounds way better on the resume. We boiled up the fish, and the soup came out this ethereal silvery white color with little sparkles floating in it. Looked like liquid starlight. Smelled like heaven. Decided to open a restaurant. One night held his bowl with trembling hands. Can we really drink this? Shut up and drink it. I chugged mine first to prove a point. The second that soup hit my stomach, oh man. Warm energy exploded through my entire body like someone lit a furnace inside my chest. I could feel it scrubbing through my blood, cleaning out impurities like some kind of magical internal car wash. Every night sat down cross-legged, closed their eyes, and started doing their breathing techniques, desperately trying to absorb every last drop of power. The whole camp went dead silent except for synchronized heavy breathing. We looked like the world's worst yoga retreat. Then someone screamed. A young trainee knight's eyes flew open, and silver light burst from his body like a human flashlight. The other knight's jaws hit the frozen ground. He just advanced. He's a full knight now. Before anyone could process that, another trainee started glowing. 2 promotions. From 1 bowl of soup. In the South, this kind of advancement takes years of training and mountains of resources. Here, 1 bowl, 1 fish, 1 frozen river that I just casually pointed at. The knights who didn't advance still got massive power boosts. Everyone was stronger. Everyone was better. And everyone was staring at me like I was some kind of divine prophet who could summon miracles by pointing at random directions. They don't know about the intelligence system, obviously. As far as they're concerned, I just knew the fish were there. Like God whispered it in my ear over breakfast. And the fact that I shared half with them, the throwaway knights that nobody wanted, the guys who got tossed to the north like expired coupons, a lord giving away treasure that nobles would fight wars over, their brains couldn't handle it. Complete system overload. Error 404. Cynicism not found. Long live Lord Lewis. Long live Lord Lewis. They were chanting my name across the frozen wasteland, voices echoing off the ice like a stadium crowd. These same guys who thought I was a joke 12 hours ago are now ready to run through walls for me. All because of some fish soup. I stood there looking noble and composed while internally doing a full victory dance. 2 days in the north, and I've already got a loyal army, power-boosted knights, and a cheat system feeding me intel. Dad, you sent me here to die? Watch me build an empire out of your dumpster. After the fish soup party, I sat down to meditate and absorb all that sweet, sweet cod energy. My family's breathing technique is called tidal breathing. Basically, you breathe like ocean waves. Power surges in, power settles down, repeat. Sounds like a yoga instructor's fever dream, but it works. I could feel my blood speeding up, my bones getting hot, my whole body doing some kind of internal renovation. Like my cells hired a contractor and said, tear down the walls, we're going open concept. When I opened my eyes, boom. Mid-rank official knight. Level up. Achievement unlocked. Now, in normal society, reaching this level at my age would make me a prodigy, a genius, a once-in-a-generation talent. But in the Calvin family, I'm still the kid eating glue in the corner. My oldest brother is already a peak knight. That's basically a walking nuclear weapon. The knight ranks go, trainee, official, elite, transcendent, peak, then legendary. I'm on step 2. Big bro is on step 5. Cool. But you know what? I'm not worried anymore. I've got a cheat system that feeds me secrets every morning like a magical newspaper. The opportunities will come. My knights started chanting, "Long live the Lord," again. That's becoming a daily thing apparently. I'm building a cult following, and I've been here 3 days. I asked Lambert how far we are from Frost Halberd City, the capital of the North. 200 kilometers. Normally a 5 or 6 day trip. I told him we're doing it in 3. Why the rush? Because today's intel drop was spicy. Intel number 1. In 3 days, a slave trader is bringing a guy named Wal to the black market in Frost Halberd City. This Wal guy, he has the potential to become a peak knight. That's top tier, kingdom pillar, army commander level power. Right now, he's probably nobody, getting sold like discount furniture. But his ceiling? Through the roof. I need to buy this man like my life depends on it. Because it probably does. Intel number 2. An alchemy apprentice named Silco stole secret recipes from the Golden Marrow Guild and is now on the run, disguised as a slave, heading to the same black market. Alchemists in this world are basically medieval chemists who can turn cheap junk into valuable stuff. My entire family, one of the biggest noble houses in the empire, only has 3 full alchemists. And here's one falling into my shopping cart for the price of a slave. Bargain. Intel number 3. Duke Edmund, the governor of the entire North, is absolutely losing his mind because every noble family sent their worst rejects to his province. That last one, I didn't even need the system to figure that out. It's common sense. But let me paint you a picture of what this poor man is dealing with. Meanwhile, in Frost Halberd City, Duke Edmund was having what medical professionals would call a complete meltdown. This man, who fought a massive rebellion 2 years ago, watched rebels breach his city walls, spent 3 months in bloody combat to save the province, and lost his only son in the process. Just received the roster of reinforcements the noble families sent him. Let's review the lineup. The Elven family sent their 3rd son, a gambling addict who owes enough debt to buy 3 mansions in the capital. Fantastic. Very helpful for border defense. The Grant family sent their young master, 15 years old, already a VIP regular at every brothel in the empire. This kid's combat experience is limited to fighting for the last bottle of wine. An MY family, the Calvin household sent, well me, listed in the report as 8th son, low-rank knight, complete waste of space who only got that far because of family resources, which, rude. Also technically accurate at the time, but still rude. Edmund was reading these files and going absolutely nuclear, slamming reports on his desk, papers flying everywhere, screaming about how the Empire asked for warriors and got gamblers, perverts, and freeloaders. He punched his desk so hard the wood groaned. His staff just stood there with their heads down, praying he wouldn't start throwing furniture at them. His exact words, roughly translated, their ancestors built this empire with iron and blood, and these parasites can't see past their own family politics. Eventually, he just gave up, sat back down, said something like, fine, let them rot. The North survives on its own. Little does he know, mixed in with all those gambling addicts and brothel regulars, there's one guy with a magical intelligence system, a freshly power-boosted night squad, and a very aggressive shopping list for the black market. Frost Halberd City, here I come. Daddy's going shopping. 3 days of hardcore marching later, my squad of 40-something knights rolled up to Frost Halberd City like we own the place. Black carriage, red moon banner flying, the whole dramatic entrance. The gate soldiers saw us coming and started gripping their weapons like we were a boss fight. I stepped out of the carriage, pulled back my hood, and yes, I looked good. Sue me. I'm Lewis Calvin, Baron of Exploration, here to see Duke Edmund. The soldiers' eyes went wide. Calvin family? One of the 8 great houses? They didn't know I was the family dumpster baby, and I wasn't about to volunteer that information. First impressions matter, people. They rushed to get someone, and a middle-aged official came speed-walking out like I was a pizza delivery he'd been waiting for. Let us right into the city. And wow, Frost Halberd City was depressing. Potholes everywhere, snow mixed with mud, crumbling buildings, collapsed ruins just sitting there like everyone collectively decided, we'll fix it. Later, the people fell into 2 categories: exhausted soldiers who'd seen too much war, and civilians who looked like their souls had left their bodies 3 winters ago. Real cheerful place. 5 stars on TripAdvisor. The official brought me to Edmund's office. No fancy decorations, just a big desk, dusty bookshelves, and a military flag. This man doesn't do luxury. He does war. And there sat Duke Edmund himself. Massive scar running from his left eye to his jaw. Face like someone carved a fortress out of granite. And an aura so intimidating that the air felt heavier. This is a peak knight. The real deal. The kind of guy who could sneeze and accidentally destroy a building. He looked me up and down like I was a disappointing appetizer. Mid-rank official knight. His voice dripped with contempt. Calvin's boy? Yes. Good-looking, at least. He smirked. More like a pretty nobleman than your famous warrior brother. Translation: you're decorative and useless. Thanks, Duke. really feeling the warm, northern hospitality. I didn't bother with small talk. Pulled out my Royal Exploration Certificate. I'm here to register my territory. Edmund barely glanced at it, confirmed it was legit, then unrolled a massive map across his desk. Pick anywhere that isn't circled in red. I looked down, and my brain nearly short-circuited. The northern province is enormous, roughly half the size of Russia from my old world, and there were only about a dozen red circles marking off-limit zones. Everything else was a buffet, and I had first pick. See, the Empire's colonization rules say first come, first served. And guess what? While every other noble family's rejects were dragging their feet, partying, and trying to delay their exile as long as possible, I sprinted here. 3-day forced march. And now I'm standing in front of an all-you-can-eat land buffet, while everyone else is still arguing about whether to pack a fourth suitcase. Now, I've been planning this moment for days. Every piece of intel from my system, every detail about northern geography, I've been cross-referencing, analyzing, and narrowing down locations like a real estate investor with insider trading information, which is basically what I am. I pointed at one spot without hesitation. This one. Edmund looked where I was pointing, and his eyebrow actually twitched. Southeastern north, at the junction of Green Rock Valley and Gray Moss Tundra, 75 kilometers from Frost Howl Bay. This spot. It's the jackpot. It's one of the few places in the north where temperatures are mild enough to actually grow cold-resistant crops outside of deep winter. It has a stream for fresh water and fishing, and it sits on top of cold iron ore deposits. Crazy hard to mine, but insanely valuable if you figure it out. In a frozen wasteland where most land is basically a decorative ice cube, this is beachfront property in Malibu. Edmund stared at me with a completely different expression. This grizzled war veteran who thought I was just another pretty boy noble. I could see the gears turning. How did this kid pick the best spot on the entire map without hesitating? Good choice, he said. And from a man who hands out compliments like they cost him money. That's basically a standing ovation. I kept my face perfectly neutral. Just trying to make the best decision I can. He actually smiled. Patted my shoulder. If every colonist had your eye for land, the North might actually have a future. Stamp. Official seal on my documents. That territory is mine. Legally, irrevocably mine. I took the papers back, ran my fingers over the frost halberd seal, and maintained my calm, dignified expression like a proper lord. Inside, full fireworks display, confetti cannons, victory lap. The crowd goes wild. Because here's the thing Edmund doesn't know. My daily intel system didn't point me to this land because it's pretty good. It pointed me here because this territory is hiding. Something way bigger than some crops and iron ore. If Edmund knew what was really under that dirt, he'd have slapped a red circle on it so fast the ink wouldn't have time to dry. But he doesn't know. And now it's mine. Step 1 of my master plan. Steal the best land before anyone else shows up. Check. Now let's go shopping at the black market. 300 square kilometers of frozen real estate, officially mine. I named it Crimson Tide Territory, partly because the Calvin family crest is crimson red, and partly as a little goodbye to the homeland I'll never see again. Pour one out for Earth, boys. Now, Edmund thinks I picked a decent spot. A little warmer than average, some farmable land, nice stream. Solid B+ territory. What Edmund doesn't know is that I'm basically sitting on top of medieval El Dorado. Let me break down what my intel system told me about this land, because it's obscene. First, the river has fish migrations twice a year. Spring and fall, entire schools of fish just swim right up to my doorstep like a DoorDash delivery on autopilot. High protein, high calorie, enough to feed my entire population and have leftovers to sell. In the north, food is more expensive than gold. I'm about to become the fish mogul of the frozen wasteland. Second, and this is where it gets stupid good, there are geothermal vents on my land. Hot earth. In the north. That's like finding a swimming pool in the Sahara. The heat warms the soil enough to grow crops, keeps people alive through the worst winters, and, oh yeah, it created several natural hot springs. While every other lord in the north is huddled around a campfire questioning their life choices, I'll be soaking in a hot tub sipping fish soup like a medieval spa influencer. But the real treasure? Hidden at the edges of my territory, there's an undiscovered vein of mage marrow ore. This stuff is basically fantasy world sulfur. Key ingredient, for making explosives. Alchemists go feral for it. I can't mine it yet because I'm too weak and someone would definitely try to steal it, but one day I'm going to invent magical gunpowder and blow up nights with it. The mental image alone keeps me warm at night. Food, warmth, hot springs, iron ore, and secret explosive minerals. Edmund handed me this land thinking it was a participation trophy. It's actually the winning lottery ticket, and nobody checked the numbers. Speaking of Edmund, I was standing there grinning like an idiot, still holding my land deed, when the old man called me out. Want me to cook you dinner too? Or are you done staring at that paper? Right. Focus. I had one more move to make. I signaled my knights to bring in 2 boxes. Open the first one. 3 live northern crystal cod, silver scales glowing in the firelight. Edmund's eyes went wide. This is the governor of the entire north, a peak knight, a man who's seen everything. And he looked at those fish like a kid seeing Santa Claus. Because even he can barely get his hands on these things. And apparently his daughter is stuck at a breakthrough point where this fish could make all the difference. Before he could say anything, I smiled and said, "These 3 are a gift. Welcome present." His face did this beautiful thing where shock, suspicion, and greed all fought for control at the same time. Then I opened box number 2. 3 more cod. These ones, I grinned, are for business. You sneaky little brat. Edmund actually laughed. First genuine laugh I'd seen from this walking fortress. What do you want? People. Slaves, soldiers, craftsmen, knights. All of them. And just like that, we started haggling like 2 aunties at a flea market. I asked for 150 soldiers. He said 50. We settled on 120 fresh recruits, untrained, but breathing, which is a start. 30 craftsmen to build stuff. I pushed for official knights. He literally laughed in my face. We compromised on 10 trainee knights and 3 official knights who answer to me, but technically serve the north. Final deal. 6 magical fish for 120 soldiers, 30 craftsmen, and 13 knights. If this were Shark Tank, I just got a standing ovation. Edmund even sent an official to escort me to the slave market so the merchants wouldn't scam me. Don't let those crooks fleece him, he told the guy. Look at that. Grumpy old Duke Edmund is starting to like me. The cod diplomacy is working beautifully. As I walked out, he called after me. Don't die too fast, kid. The warmest goodbye I've gotten since arriving in this world. I'll take it. Now, slave market time. I've got a future peak knight and a runaway alchemist waiting for me on the clearance rack, and I intend to pick them up at bargain prices before anyone realizes what they're worth. Shopping spree continues. This is the best ice sky ever. Frost Halberd City's East Market. Picture the world's most depressing flea market, but with more screaming and the merchandise as people. The air smelled like raw animal hides, roasted meat, and bad life decisions. Stalls were literally just sticks with a tarp thrown on top. This place used to be a tiny farmer's market, but the moment the emperor announced his colonization program, merchant guilds came swarming in like sharks smelling blood in the water. Capitalism finds a way, even in the frozen apocalypse. And right at the far end, the slave market. A bunch of wooden fences around a patch of dirt, filled with people in rags, heads down, spirits crushed. Some still had angry eyes, until the slavers cracked their whips 10 times in a row and suddenly everyone rediscovered the art of staring at their shoes. Slavery is technically a gray area in the empire. You know, one of those things that's illegal-ish, but everyone does it anyway, like jaywalking or eating expired yogurt. In the north, though, it's as open as a 7-Eleven. The slave merchant spotted me and my entourage immediately. Rich-looking young noble with 40 knights? Dollar signs practically exploded in his eyeballs. Gentlemen, come see. Finest workers in the north. Cold-resistant, hunger-resistant, practically indestructible. The official Edmund sent with me shut that energy down real quick. This is Baron Calvin. Watch yourself. The merchant's grin somehow got wider. Of course, of course. Fair prices only. These workers can farm, chop wood, build houses, pick cotton. You name it. He started slapping his slaves on the shoulders like used cars at a dealership. Look at these guys. Skinny but efficient. Feed them scraps and they'll work till midnight without complaining. Then, and I cannot make this up, this man leaned in and whispered, "Of course, if the Lord has other interests. We have premium selections. Southern girls. Pale skin. Fully trained. Very satisfying. I gave him my coldest look. No, he pivoted so fast he nearly got whiplash. Of course, a man of vision. Workers are the real investment. Now, while this greasy salesman was doing his pitch, I was scanning the crowd for my two targets. Target number one, a scrawny little kid, shivering in some woman's arms like a baby rabbit in a snowstorm. Pathetic, helpless, the kind of child you'd walk right past without a second thought. That's wild. Future peak night. Future one-man army. Future, I can solo your entire battalion, level warrior. Currently, he looks like he'd lose a fight to a strong breeze. If my system hadn't flagged him, nobody would ever guess this trembling kid could grow up to decide wars. Target number two, a skeletal man hunched in the corner, hiding behind his own greasy hair, trying to be so invisible he'd merge with the fence. He looked like the most broken, hopeless person in the entire group. Just a sad little lump of misery. That's Silco, runaway alchemy apprentice, recipe thief, future mad scientist of my territory, currently disguised as, please don't notice me. I'm just a regular worthless slave. Nothing to see here. Both of them? Bargain bin. Nobody else in this frozen hellscape has any idea what they just walked past. How much per slave? I asked, keeping my poker face on. 8 silver for men, for silver for women and children. Not bad. The official's presence was clearly keeping the merchant from going full scam mode. How many do you have? 380 here, but I can get more. I'll take them all. The merchant's jaw nearly dislocated. I then went to every other slave trader in the market and bought another 120 people. 500 slaves total. 380 gold coins. My wallet screamed. My bank account sobbed. Nearly half my money, gone in one afternoon. Then I had to buy food, seeds, farming tools, weapons, and building supplies. Everything in the north costs double what it costs down south, because apparently frozen dirt comes with a luxury markup. After all the shopping, I counted my remaining gold. 68 coins. I went from son of a duke to struggling small business owner in 48 hours. Entrepreneurship is brutal. During my 2 days in the city, I bumped into a few other noble rejects who got sent north. Wanted to see if any were worth befriending. Nope. One was permanently drunk in a tavern, trying to pickle himself into forgetting he exists. Another sat around looking like a depressed ghost, cursing the emperor, cursing his parents, and basically writing angry Yelp reviews about his own life. He begged me to help him escape back south. Buddy, I can barely help myself. I smiled politely and walked away. These guys aren't competition. They're barely characters. They're NPCs running the despair dialogue loop. 2 days later, I climbed onto my horse at the city gates and looked out at the road ahead. Behind me, 1,000 people. My original knights, the new soldiers, craftsmen, knights from Edmund, and 500 freshly purchased slaves, including one future super soldier and one fugitive alchemist who don't know their lives. Just got very interesting. We look like a small army, which is good, because that's exactly what we are. Move out. The column lurched forward, heading southeast toward Crimson Tide territory. My territory, my hot springs, my fish rivers, my secret explosive minerals, and my ridiculously overpowered future. 68 gold coins in my pocket, 1,000 mouths to feed, a frozen wasteland to conquer, and a cheat system whispering secrets in my ear every morning. Let's build this thing. First order of business as a new slave owner: feed everybody. I had the cook set up giant pots of porridge and let all 500 slaves line up for hot food. You should have seen their faces. These people have been fighting over scraps for who knows how long, and now they're getting served warm meals like it's a soup kitchen with a budget. My new cook George, a slave I apparently acquired in the bundle deal, was having a financial anxiety attack behind the stove. My lord, at this rate, we'll run out of food. We'll starve. George, shut up and cook. He sighed like a man accepting his fate on the Titanic. Then I heard him mumbling. At this rate, I'll be back on the slave market in 6 months. Better sneak extra bowls while I still can. Buddy doesn't know I'm sitting on a territory with fish deliveries twice a year and geothermal vegetable gardens. But sure, steal your extra porridge, George. Live your best life. Meanwhile, my daily intel dropped. Number 1. Baron Hayes, another noble exile, got so drunk on his journey that he literally froze to death. Died of a hangover in below zero weather. That's Actually kind of impressive in a Darwin Award sort of way. Rest in peace, you beautiful disaster. Number 2. Edmund's youngest daughter Emily broke through to Elite Knight. Those caught I gave him clearly worked. Investment paying dividends already. Good. Number 3. 70 hungry ice wolves are hiding in the canyon ahead, waiting to ambush my caravan. 70. Wolves. Giant, frozen, murder wolves. Smelling my grain supplies and thinking, buffet. Now, with my current forces I wasn't scared. I've got knights who can split wolves in half with glowing red swords. But if those things hit us by surprise, people die, supplies get wrecked, slaves panic, everything goes sideways. So instead of walking into the ambush like every dumb horror movie character ever, I called Lambert and told him to send scout teams of 5 into the canyon. They came back fast. Lambert found deep claw prints in the snow, not even bothering to hide their tracks. These wolves were so starving they'd lost all tactical discipline. Basically the wolf equivalent of, I don't care who sees me. I need that sandwich. I gathered everyone and said the coolest thing I've ever said in 2 lifetimes. They came looking for prey. Let's show them who the real predators are. We set traps throughout the canyon and waited. The wolves came creeping in at nightfall. 70 of them, gray-blue fur blending perfectly with the snow, glowing green eyes locked on our caravan. Skinny from hunger, but absolutely packed with explosive power. Their alpha howled, and they surged forward like ghosts made of teeth and bad intentions. Closer, closer, boom. The traps fired. Giant wooden stakes erupted from the snow and skewered the front line. Wolf blood painted the white ground red. The pack scattered in total confusion. That's when my archers opened up. Arrows rained down like the world's most violent hailstorm. Wolves yelping, wolves dropping, wolves catching arrows through the throat mid-sprint. Now, Lambert's sword carved a silver arc through the air, and my knights charged. What happened next was basically a medieval action movie with the budget cranked to maximum. One knight leaped into the air and drove a glowing red spear through a wolf so hard it pinned the corpse to the ground and cracked the earth underneath. Another knight swung a massive sword wrapped in crimson fire and literally cut a wolf in half. Lengthwise, 2 separate wolf halves. On fire. These aren't normal soldiers. These are human weapons who happen to have table manners. The wolves, ancient apex predators of the frozen north, feared by every living creature in 1,000 miles, took one look at my knights and collectively decided they'd made a terrible career choice. They tried to run. Close the net. Knights formed a circle. No escape. Every swing of a sword ended a wolf. The canyon turned into a slaughterhouse with sound effects I'll be hearing in my nightmares. Finally, only the Wolf King was left. Standing alone in a field of its dead pack, blood soaking its fur, green eyes burning with pure rage. One last defiant howl. It launched itself at Lambert, claws out, jaws wide, moving fast enough to shred steel. Lambert sidestepped like he was dodging a slow pitch, charged his sword with that glowing red battle energy, and brought it down in one clean strike. The Wolf King's head went one direction. Its body went another. Meeting adjourned. Lambert wasn't even breathing hard. My lord, the wolves have been eliminated. 70 wolves. 0 casualties on our side. Not even a scratch. My knights just committed wolf genocide without messing up their hair. The loot was incredible. 70 thick wolf pelts. Premium cold weather gear right there. A pile of sharp fangs, and a mountain of wolf meat. Enough protein to feed a small army. Which is convenient, because I have a small army. Strip the pelts. Distribute the meat. Everyone eats tonight. The soldiers erupted in cheers. Hot meat in the frozen north? That's not dinner. That's a holiday. Even the new guys, the 120 recruits from Edmund who barely knew me, were looking at me differently now. Not just, this is my boss, anymore. More like, this guy finds food out of thin air, predicts ambushes before they happen, and feeds us wolf steaks as a casual Tuesday. George the cook watched me give away another mountain of food, and I could practically hear his brain short-circuiting. He's doing it again. Yeah, George. I'm doing it again. Get used to it. After weeks of marching, we finally arrived at Crimson Tide territory. My land. My kingdom. What a dump. One of my southern knights said what everyone was thinking. Yeah, fair. The place looked like God started making a landscape, got bored, and just left. No grass. No trees worth mentioning. No signs of life. Just frozen dirt stretching in every direction like the world's worst screensaver. But I know what's hiding under this ugly face. This land is like one of those home renovation shows. Looks like garbage on the outside, but inside, jackpot. I just need to knock down some walls and install better lighting. This place will be the richest territory in the north, I muttered to myself. Bold words for a guy standing in what looks like an abandoned parking lot covered in snow. But I meant every syllable. No time for dramatic staring, though. I started firing off orders like a machine gun. Set up tents. Start chopping wood. Find a river for water. Clear ground for a training field. Nobody sits around doing nothing. And just like that, the silence of this dead land was shattered by 1,000 people suddenly working. Axes chopping, people shouting, boots crunching through snow. It was beautiful, like an ant colony, but with more complaining. Over the next few days, I personally explored every corner of my territory. Had to see it all with my own eyes. First stop, the south side. I noticed steam rising from patches where snow had melted. Knelt down, put my hand on the ground, and warm. Actual warmth coming from the earth. Geothermal vents. Confirmed. My intel system wasn't lying. In a land where everything wants to freeze you to death, I'm sitting on top of nature's central heating system. And nearby? Hot springs. Multiple ones. I found actual hot springs in the north. I immediately decided my personal manor goes right next to the hot springs. Non-negotiable. While other lords are freezing in their stone castles wrapped in 17 fur blankets, I'll be soaking in naturally heated water like a medieval spa owner. Priority number 1. Warlord stuff. Priority number 2. Hot tub. Next I checked the river. The ice was already cracking, water flowing underneath, birds diving in to catch fish. Not a huge population yet, but my system says when spring hits, this river becomes fish city. Spawning season. All-you-can-eat aquatic buffet, delivered directly to my front door by Mother Nature herself. Then my scout knights came galloping back with the news I'd been waiting for. My lord, we found cold iron ore in the northwestern mountains, and deeper inside, some kind of dark red, glowing mineral. We think it might be mage marrow. Lambert nearly choked on his own spit. Mage marrow? That's a gold mine. Literally. I just nodded calmly. Interesting. Inside I was doing backflips. But I already knew about this from the intel system, so I had to play it cool. Can't have my people thinking I'm psychic. Well, actually, they already kind of do. But let's not push it. The mage marrow is my long-game secret weapon. Can't mine it yet. Don't have the manpower or tech. But someday? Oh, someday that explosive mineral is going to change everything. So the scoreboard for Crimson Tide territory so far: geothermal heating, hot springs, fishing river, cold iron mines, and secret explosive mineral deposits. In the north, where everyone else is fighting over frozen rocks and sadness. But then, we found the locals, and my good mood hit a wall. The native settlement was the most depressing thing I'd seen in either of my 2 lives. Muddy, rotting ground. Houses, if you can even call them that, made of sticks and mud, leaning sideways like drunk people trying to stand up. The previous administrator had apparently just left, ran away, abandoned these people completely. The residents were mostly old people, women, and children. Skin and bones wrapped in cloth scraps that wouldn't pass as rags back south. They looked at us with completely dead eyes. Not scared, not hopeful, just empty, like they'd run out of emotions a long time ago. Some skinny kids were hiding behind doorframes, faces red from frostbite, peeking at us like we might be the next bad thing to happen to them. Because in their experience, new arrivals usually are the next bad thing. Something inside me twisted. Back in my old life, I went through the public education system. I learned about human rights and children's welfare and all that stuff you take for granted until you see a real kid shivering in rags, too scared to come out from behind a door. I got off my horse, pulled some dried food from my bag, crouched down, and held it out. Here, eat. Nobody moved. They just stared at the food like it was a trap, which, given their life experience, was a completely reasonable assumption. But the smell. Dried rations aren't gourmet, but to a starving child, they might as well be a 5-star restaurant wafting through the air. It's okay. Eat. The dam broke. Kids grabbed the food and started inhaling it like tiny vacuum cleaners, shoving it in their mouths as fast as possible because their entire life has taught them that food disappears if you don't eat it right now. But one little boy didn't eat his. He quietly tucked his piece inside his torn shirt. "Why aren't you eating?" I asked. He looked up at me with his dirty little face, scared but determined. I want to save it. To eat with Mama." I froze. In the South, nobles feed their dogs premium meat. Their pets eat better than these children. And this kid, this tiny, starving, freezing kid, is hiding his first real food in days so his mother can have some too. Something shifted in my chest. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It wasn't just about building power or getting rich or beating the system. These were real people, real kids, and somebody needed to do something. I stood up and announced to every native within earshot, "Anyone who's willing to work can come to my camp. I'll give you food. I'll give you shelter. I'll keep you alive." They stared at me. Blank faces. Dead eyes. They'd heard promises before. Every promise in their lives had been broken, abandoned, or was a trick. But they looked at the kids eating real food. Looked at each other. And slowly, one by one, they nodded. Not because they believed me, but because when you're already at the absolute bottom, what's one more gamble? Fine by me. I don't need their trust yet. I just need them to show up. The trust comes later, when I deliver. And I will deliver. That kid saving food for his mom. That image is burned into my brain now. It's fuel. It's motivation. This frozen wasteland is going to become something worth living in. And that little boy is going to eat so much food he'll complain about being full. That's a promise from a guy who got hit by a truck and woke up in a fantasy world with a cheat system. And so far, my promises have a pretty good track record. I stood on a hill overlooking my territory and thought, this is where the magic happens. Then I looked at the actual land and thought, eventually. Not right now. Right now it looks like a parking lot after the apocalypse. My head builder, Mike, best craftsman I got from the Edmund deal, walked up and asked the question every builder asks a new lord. "Shall we start on your castle, my lord?" "No. Build houses for the people first. Then, where will you live? With everyone else." Mike looked at me like I'd just told him the sky is green. A lord? Living with commoners? In the same building? His brain needed a moment to reboot. "What? You think I can't handle it?" I shrugged. "We're in the frozen north. Nobody's getting a penthouse. In reality, of course I want a castle. Of course I want my own room. But you know what's more valuable than comfort? Loyalty. And nothing buys loyalty faster than a lord who sleeps in the same dirt as his people. It's the cheapest PR move in medieval history." Together, Mike and I designed what I'm calling the Crimson Tide Special, a semi-underground longhouse, combining this world's northern architecture with Viking longhouses I remembered from books in my past life. The design is genius, if I say so myself. You dig down about a third into the ground, instant insulation. Frame it with logs, weave the walls with willow branches, slap mud and grass all over it. Boom. Warm, windproof, waterproof, and fast to build. Mike was practically drooling. "You designed this just now? You're a construction genius." "No, Mike. I'm a guy who paid attention in history class once." "But sure, let's go with genius." We organized teams of 20, 2 soldiers supervising 18 workers, and got a building. Now here's where I deployed my secret leadership technique. Every few hours, I'd stroll over to a work site, roll up my sleeves, grab a shovel, and dig for about 15 minutes. Just long enough for everyone to see me sweating alongside them. "Wow, this is hard work. You guys are doing great. Dinner's coming soon. Take a break." Then I'd casually wander to the next site and do the same thing. Dig for a bit, say something encouraging, leave. "Nice framework. You'll sleep warm tonight. Put the mud on thicker, unless you want to freeze. Almost done here? I'll send hot soup over." It's basically management by walking around, except medieval. I do 12 minutes of actual labor and generate 12 hours of morale. The soldiers who were grumpy about doing construction work instead of warrior stuff saw me digging and suddenly couldn't complain anymore. The slaves who'd been treated like animals their whole lives saw a lord getting his hands dirty for them, and their brains completely malfunctioned. The result? Everyone worked like they were possessed. Motivation cranked to 11. Productivity through the roof. We finished the first batch of houses in days. And honestly, they looked pretty great. These grass-covered mounds blended right into the snowy landscape, half buried in the earth, solid log frames inside, mud-sealed walls keeping the cold out. Built in a ring around the geothermal vents so the warm earth keeps everyone from freezing. It's not luxury. It's not pretty. But for the North, this is basically a 5-star hotel. With the houses done, I decided it was time for phase 2 of my plan, a celebration. Because houses keep bodies alive, but parties keep spirits alive. And I needed these people to feel like they belonged to something. Not as slaves, not as refugees, as citizens. That night, we lit the biggest bonfire Crimson Tide had ever seen, which was easy because it was also the first bonfire Crimson Tide had ever seen. Almost 1,000 people gathered around it. Slaves, natives, refugees, soldiers, knights. All mixed together, all staring at the fire, all wondering what this crazy young lord was going to do next. I climbed up on a big rock, black cloak billowing dramatically in the firelight, because aesthetics matter, and gave my announcement. Today is Crimson Tide's first celebration. These houses are your homes. This land is your home. And you are the owners of this land. Dead silence. 1,000 people staring at me with the collective expression of, what? Owners? Them? These people who've been kicked, sold, starved, and told they're worthless their entire lives? They don't even know what ownership means. They know work. They know obey. They know survive. Nobody has ever told them they could own something. I expected this reaction. You can't undo a lifetime of trauma with one speech. But you can plant a seed. And seeds grow. Now, I continued, scanning the crowd. I'm going to reward the hardest workers among you. My newly appointed steward Silco. Yes, the fugitive alchemist, now fully employed and very grateful, opened a scroll and started reading names. Hack, Morgan, Sharna, and every single person whose name was called flinched. Some started shaking. Some lowered their heads. Some looked ready to drop to their knees and beg for mercy. Because in their experience, when a lord calls your name, that means punishment. That means pain. That means you're about to have a very bad day. They had no idea what was actually coming. And standing on my rock, watching their terrified faces, I thought, just wait. In about 30 seconds, I'm going to completely destroy everything you think you know about lords. The setup is perfect. The fear makes the surprise hit 10 times harder. When people expect the worst and get the best, that's not just kindness. That's how you build an empire. So there I was, standing on a big rock like some kind of discount motivational speaker, about to drop the biggest bombshell these poor souls ever heard. I grabbed those slave contracts from Hilco and tossed them straight into the bonfire. Dramatic? Absolutely. Did I practice that throw? I'll never tell. You're free now, I announced. Dead silence. You could hear a snowflake land. Then, absolute chaos. People screaming, crying, one guy smashing his forehead into the frozen ground so hard, he started bleeding. And honestly, I wanted to say, buddy, please stop. You're making me uncomfortable. But he was too busy calling me a savior sent by the gods. A young woman was sobbing into her hands. An old man was shaking his fists at the sky, mumbling prayers. It was like I'd announced free Wi-Fi in a world that had never seen the internet. The other slaves who didn't get freed? Oh, the regret on their faces was priceless. You could practically hear their brains going, why didn't I work harder last Tuesday? Perfect timing for bomb number 2. Every month, 10 more of you get freed. Work hard, contribute, and you could even own land. Now everyone lost their minds. They started chanting, Great Master, over and over, louder and louder, like I was headlining a concert I never auditioned for. Honestly, it was a little terrifying. 5 minutes ago, these people were walking zombies, and now they looked ready to start a religion with my face on it. My knights were standing there with their jaws on the floor. The young ones looked genuinely scared, like, why are the slaves worshipping him harder than we do? Here's my little secret, though. Being free in Crimson Tide territory basically means you still hand over everything you grow and I redistribute it. So really, the main difference between a slave and a free person here is vibes. But vibes with upward mobility? That's motivational gold. Why free everyone at once and risk chaos when you can turn liberation into an Employee of the Month program? Then I turned to my soldiers. Don't worry, I didn't forget you guys. My servants cracked open these heavy wooden crates, and the firelight hit rows of brand new leather armor and warm boots. You'd think I'd opened a chest full of diamonds. These guys were running around in busted-up shoes in below-zero weather. So yeah, new boots were basically Christmas morning. Are these real? One soldier yelled, holding up a boot like it was the Holy Grail. Of course they're real. I bought them in Frost Halberd City specifically because my intelligence network told me exactly what they needed most. Hit them right where it hurts. Or in this case, right where their toes were getting frostbite. How could they not be grateful? Then came the feast. Golden roasted game meat dripping juice into the flames, sizzling and smelling like heaven decided to open a barbecue restaurant. Everyone got a piece, even the lowest-ranking slaves. Some people literally cried, eating their first real meat in years. A refugee pulled out a bone flute and started playing. Women were dancing in circles, soldiers were having dance-offs around the bonfire, and kids were sprinting around screaming with pure joy. And me? I just stood up on my rock, watching it all. These people had put every last drop of hope into me. Now I actually had to figure out how to keep them alive, and maybe even thriving, in this frozen wasteland. No pressure or anything. Poor Hilko. The guy looked like a zombie who'd been through a paper shredder. All I did was casually say, "Hey, go register everyone's info and find out what they're good at." You know, a simple task. Nothing crazy. Apparently, it nearly killed him. From what I gathered, his interviews went something like this. "What did you do before?" "I farmed." "Do you want to keep farming?" "That I don't know." Or my personal favorite, someone apparently answered, "What are you good at?" "With staying alive." I'm told Hilko almost slapped the guy with the clipboard. Beautiful. Now here's the thing about Hilko that he doesn't think I know. The kid's not some random slave. He's actually an alchemy apprentice from the Emerald Federation's Gold Marrow Guild. A criminal one, at that. See, this genius got hired by some shady black market guy to steal his teacher's secret alchemy formula. The price was good enough for him to open his own workshop, so naturally he went for it. Problem was, the formula was too complicated to memorize, so he just grabbed the whole thing. My teacher loses stuff all the time, he figured. He won't notice. He noticed. The guild put out a warrant. The black market buyer got caught and snitched faster than you can say loyalty. Hilko, facing the very real possibility of becoming a lab rat for experimental alchemy, did the only logical thing, disguised himself as a slave and snuck into a slave trader's caravan. Brilliant plan. One problem. The slave traders were smarter than him. Every time he tried something sneaky, they whipped him into obedience. After a few rounds of that, he stopped being a fake slave and became a very real, very obedient one. He couldn't even reveal his alchemy background because the traders would have happily sold him right back to the guild for a nice bounty. So he ended up at the Frost Halberd City black market, expecting to get shipped off to die in some mine. Instead, yours truly bought him and dragged him out here to the middle of nowhere. He probably thought he'd escaped one hell just to land in another. But surprise, I actually treat people like people. Revolutionary concept, I know. When I found out he could read and do math, I freed him and made him my assistant. I think it genuinely broke his brain that a noble would treat slaves as actual human beings. He once told someone I seemed less like a lord and more like a priest. I'll take it. Now, do I know he's secretly plotting to run away? Of course I do. My daily intelligence system isn't just decoration. I've known everything about him since day one. But why would I blow his cover? Think about it. If I tell him, "I know you're an alchemist," this guy's going to get ideas. He'll start wanting to do alchemy stuff and stop doing the boring paperwork. And then guess who has to sit in a mountain of ledgers and documents, chewing through administrative work? Me. That's who. Absolutely not. So I'm playing dumb. Besides, we're in the middle of frozen nowhere. Where's he going to run? The nearest civilization is days away and full of people who want to arrest him. He's stuck here whether he likes it or not. He dropped the completed census on my desk looking like death warmed over. Black circles under his eyes, barely standing straight. But the work itself? Actually impressive. Messy handwriting, sure, but organized really well. He'd cataloged everyone down to the old folks who could barely hold a hoe, women who could weave, even kids who were good at hunting. The guy put in serious effort. Talent. Annoying, reluctant, escape-plotting talent, but talent. I flipped through the results and couldn't help smiling. Crimson Tide territory actually had way more to work with than I expected. Over 1,000 people, mostly farmers and herders, about 100 experienced fishermen, plus dozens of hunters, blacksmiths, carpenters, and leatherworkers. Enough to build a self-sustaining settlement. This is exactly why I ordered the census. A territory is like a machine. Every gear needs to be in the right spot. You don't send a farmer to forge swords or a fisherman to dig ditches. Well, you could, but then everything runs like a car with square wheels. A lord who doesn't know his people can't control his future. Now came the fun part, figuring out where to put everyone so this frozen wasteland could actually start working. I pressed my hands against my head and let the gears spin. 1,000 people don't feed themselves on wishful thinking, so Crimson Tide territory needed actual industries. Real ones. Not, let's hope my intelligence system drops free stuff from the sky, once. Once the plan clicked together in my brain, I looked at Hilko. I talk. You right. He nodded like a man running on his last battery bar. Send 100 fishermen to the river. Build a temporary dock. Start making boats. I tapped the map where the river squiggles around. Fish are scarce now, but when the water warms up, they'll swim upstream to spawn like it's rush hour traffic. That's our food gold mine. Long-term. Fish farms. If we can breed cold water fish, we've got ourselves a whole aquaculture business instead of just praying the wild ones show up. Got it, Hilko scribbled. 400 farmers. Put them on land clearing. I drew a line across the geothermal zone on my map. We use hot spring water to melt the frozen ground and set up irrigation early. The soil isn't amazing, but with geothermal heat doing the heavy lifting, it'll work. First crops, rye and potatoes. They're tough, they're cold resistant, they're basically the cockroaches of the plant world. Got it. Livestock, we don't have enough. A few cows, some sheep, a handful of reindeer. That's not a ranch, that's a petting zoo. I'll send buyers to Frost Halberd City for more animals and set up a proper grazing area. Got it. Hilko was nodding like a bobblehead at this point. 50-something hunters. They hunt, obviously, but also there are forest patrol. Keep the magic beasts away from town and make sure no sketchy strangers sneak in. And the craftsmen from Frost Halberd City. Leatherworkers make winter clothes first, blacksmiths forge farm tools, carpenters build houses. Then we set up one big workshop, put them all together so they can collaborate, take on apprentices, and boom, full production chain. I was talking fast because honestly, I'd rehearsed this in my head about 50 times already. Now here's the part that made me quietly proud. I caught Hilko looking at me differently. This kid came in thinking all nobles were arrogant hypocrites who talk big and treat people like garbage. He figured I was just some soft-hearted fool who'd run this place into the ground with kindness. But I could see it in his eyes. Oh wait, this guy actually knows what he's doing moment. Felt good. Not that I'd ever say that out loud. We rolled out the plan, and Crimson Tide came alive. Campfires burning, smoke rising, hunters gearing up, fishermen hammering boats together, blacksmith hammers ringing through the air. The land that had been dead silent for who knows how long was finally waking up. Then spring arrived. Sort of. Most of the north was still buried under leftover snow, completely unfarmable. But MY land. Soft, warm, and moist. Because a week ago, Genius over here ordered hot spring water channeled into the fields to melt the permafrost. The farmers lost their minds. Is this really northern soil? One guy scooped up a handful of dirt and just held it, feeling the warmth, looking like he might cry. Everyone started touching the ground like it was some kind of miracle. The hot water actually thawed it. We can plant crops in early spring? In the north? Now, between us, the hot spring trick is temporary. That water's salty. Do it too many times and the soil turns into a salt flat where nothing grows. Eventually we'll need greenhouses. But for now, it works. Standing next to me was Mick, my new head of agriculture. This guy was a hidden gem buried among the slaves. Quiet, awkward, couldn't string 3 words together at a party. But put him near dirt and the man becomes a savant. He could feel soil quality with his fingertips like some kind of earth whisperer. If my intelligence system hadn't flagged him, I never would have found him. When I freed him and gave him the title of agricultural officer, the poor guy looked like I'd told him he won the lottery in a language he didn't speak. He had zero idea how to say thank you, so he just worked. Silently. Furiously. Every single day. Today was plowing and fertilizer day. Mick crumbled some soil between his fingers, smiled, wiped his rough hands on his shirt, and said, "My lord, we're ready, let's go then." "Everyone, start plowing," Mick bellowed. Hundreds of farmers bent down and drove iron plows into the earth. So soft. There's steam coming out of the dirt. The experienced northern farmers were genuinely shocked. And once again, guess who they credited? Me. Admiration points. +1. Then came my piece de resistance, the fertilizer. Wooden carts rolled and loaded with dark, pungent, absolutely foul-smelling compost. My special recipe, human and animal manure, straw, fish guts, and cola powder, an alchemical compound that supercharges soil fertility and keeps bugs away. The smell hit like a wall. People's eyes watered. Noses burned. A few farmers winced. Did I, the noble lord, cover my nose or complain? Absolutely not. Because nothing says, I'm a leader, quite like standing proudly in a cloud of fish gut poop stench without flinching. Everyone spread the fertilizer into the freshly plowed soil, mixing it in nice, and even so the nutrients could soak deep. For days until we can plant, Mick announced, stomping the dirt with satisfaction. I stuck around long enough to make sure everything was running smoothly, then headed out. Not because of the smell, I want to make that very clear, but because my daily intelligence system had just pinged me with 3 new pieces of useful intel that needed my attention. Totally the intel thing. Not the smell. Definitely not the smell. My intelligence system decided to actually be useful for once and dropped 3 golden nuggets on me all at once. Usually it's stuff like, a farmer sneezed today, or there's a rock shaped like a potato near the East Hill. But today it went full overachiever. Intel number 1. The chief of the Cold Moon tribe got poisoned and died. Now the whole tribe's ripping itself apart in a civil war. These guys are serious bad news. Berserker warriors, elite archers, they've been terrorizing the northern provinces for ages. Duke Edmund absolutely hates them. And now their leader's dead and they're fighting each other? On one hand, this could mean a massive storm is coming for the entire north. On the other hand, I'm currently a shrimp trying to build a fish tank. I can't exactly go influence barbarian politics right now. File that under problems for future me and move on. Intel number 2. A pack of ice wolves at Green Rock Canyon. Mostly puppies. Now this got my attention. Ice wolves are the apex predators of the northern plains. Massive, insanely fast, can survive temperatures that would freeze your eyeballs. Their noses are so sharp, they could probably smell what you had for breakfast 3 days ago. Perfect for scouting and combat. Adult wolves? Impossible to tame. You'd have better luck teaching a rock to dance. But puppies? Raise them from birth, and you've got yourself wolf cavalry. Let me say that again because it deserves emphasis. Wolf. Cavalry. And here's the beautiful irony. I'm pretty sure these pups are orphans because we killed their parents on our way to Crimson Tide. Small world, huh? Sorry we murdered your mom and dad. Want to come live with us? We have food. Intel number 3. This one made me laugh out loud. In 4 days, some merchant named Jack would be selling cranberry seeds in Frost Halberd City. Mixed in with those ordinary cranberry seeds, about a dozen frost blood crimson berry seeds. These things are insanely rare mutant berries. They look like regular cranberries, but they're deep red. The juice is thick, packed with magical energy, and here's the kicker. They boost a Blood Knight's battle aura and accelerate cultivation. If I could grow these at scale, they'd become Crimson Tide's most valuable export. We're talking liquid gold in berry form. One problem. 4 days to reach Frost Halberd City when it takes longer than that to get there. Even going full speed, I'd miss it by a day. And in that one day, someone else could snatch them up. Unacceptable. I summon Lambert and 2 elite knights immediately. Lambert's my guardian knight. If anyone can get this done, it's him. 3 of you. Fastest horses. Get to Frost Halberd City in 3 days. I gave him the hardest stare I could manage. East side of the market. Merchant named Jack. He'll be selling cranberry seeds. You get there a day early, you camp at his stall, and you buy everything he has. All of it. Lambert blinked. I could see the confusion. The boss is sending 3 elite knights on a full-speed emergency mission for berry seeds. But bless this man, he didn't question it. Not even for a second. Because every weird order I've given so far has turned out to be genius. I've built up enough trust credit that I could probably tell him to go buy a specific chicken and he'd salute and ride off. Then I thought, since they're going to the city anyway, might as well multitask. I grabbed a parchment and wrote a letter home. Simple stuff. Hi, Dad. I'm alive. Please send money. I wasn't sure my cold-blooded father would even bother responding. But hey, even if he tossed us a fraction of the family fortune, it'd turbocharge Crimson Tide's development. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Worst case, he ignores it. Best case, Daddy's money goes BRRR. I sealed it with my personal stamp, handed it to Lambert. Deliver this to our family trade company's representative. Make sure it gets sent home fast. Understood. The 3 of them rode off in a cloud of frozen dust. Godspeed, you beautiful fools. Next morning, wolf puppy heist time. I rode out at dawn with 5 elite hunters and 8 proper knights, heading straight for Green Rock Canyon. My lead hunter Ager had sent scouts ahead overnight. Report? I asked. Pack's lost its alpha, Ager confirmed. Mostly pups and a few elderly females hiding deep in the caves. Perfect timing. We crept toward the canyon. The snow was covered in paw prints and blood. Clearly there'd been fighting last night. Wolves without a leader tear each other apart. Nature's a peach. My plan was simple and devious. Team 1 would make noise and lure the adult wolves out with bait. Team 2 would sneak in and grab the puppies while mama wolves were distracted. Classic, look over there, strategy. The hunters scattered fresh deer meat and bloody animal remains outside the cave, then tied the biggest chunks to the backs of the knight's horses. The scent of blood hit the air like a dinner bell. Low growling echoed from inside the cave. Pairs of glowing green eyes opened in the darkness. Here they come, Ager whispered. 5 massive adult wolves stalked out, scanning the area, throats rumbling with that deep predator growl that makes your spine tingle. Their eyes locked onto the meat scattered in the distance. Instinct kicked in. They charged. The knights spurred their horses, dragging the bait further and further from the cave, leading the wolves on a merry chase. Come on, doggies, follow the snacks. Once the wolves were far enough from their babies, the knights wheeled around. Swords flashed. The alpha went down first, blade through the throat before it could even process what happened. The others snarled and tried to fight back, but these weren't some random hunters with pointy sticks. These were trained knights with battle aura. It was less epic battle and more, oh no, the wolves brought teeth to a sword fight. A few minutes later, every adult wolf was down. Efficient, brutal, and honestly a little anticlimactic. Now if you'll excuse me, I had some puppies to adopt. While my knights were outside turning adult wolves into very quiet rugs, I led the sneaky squad straight into the cave. Light it up, I whispered. Torches flickered on, and the orange glow revealed the inside of what I can only describe as wet dog smell. The cave, rough rocky walls, thick animal stink, and there in the back corner, the jackpot. 20-something ice wolf puppies huddled together like the world's most dangerous cotton ball pile. Snow-white fur, big terrified eyes, shaking like they were auditioning for a sad pet adoption commercial. My heart almost broke. Almost. I was here on business. So many pups, one hunter whispered, practically drooling. Ager licked his cracked lips like a man who just found treasure. When these little guys grow up, they'll be absolute killers. Then a few of the braver puppies try to growl at us. And I say, tried, because imagine the world's tiniest, fluffiest creature going, "Jirrrrrrr," with its baby teeth. It was so adorable I wanted to scream. When you're small and weak, even your anger is cute. Sorry pups, you're not scary, you're a screensaver. Feisty little things, Ager chuckled. We placed chunks of meat near the pups, meat that had been secretly coated with herbal sedatives. The ol', here's a free snack, no strings attached, definitely not drugged, trick. A few hungry brave ones sniffed the air, hesitated, then went for it. Once the others saw their buddies eating without dropping dead, it became a puppy feeding frenzy. They were shoving each other with tiny paws, fighting over scraps. Very dramatic. Very adorable. Then about 2 minutes later, the drugs kicked in. Eyes got droopy. Little legs got wobbly. One pup tried to growl and just swayed sideways. It was like watching a daycare at nap time, except everyone's a wolf. Go time, Ager said. Be gentle, I reminded everyone. These are future war wolves, not luggage. The hunters wrapped each pup in soft animal hides and slipped them into specially made leather bags. A few stubborn ones stayed awake and thrashed around trying to fight back, but when you weigh about as much as a loaf of bread, resistance is mostly symbolic. 20-plus puppies bagged and tagged. Mission complete. We grabbed our adorable hostages and rode home. Back at Crimson Tide, I'd already had a pen set up for them. Spacious, floor covered in thick hay, cozy little nests made from animal hides in the corners to mimic their cave life. Basically a 5-star wolf daycare. Did the pups appreciate the hospitality? Of course not. They huddled together, ears up, tiny razor teeth bared, ready to fight anything that moved. Ungrateful little fluffballs. But one pup caught my eye immediately, standing right in the middle of the group, while every other pup was whimpering and cowering. This one was just standing, tall, calm, staring at me like I was the one being evaluated. Bigger than the rest, longer legs, and eyes that screamed, "I will end you when I'm older." This pup had main character energy. That one, Ager breathed, clearly impressed, is born to be a wolf king. I grinned. Then I'll call you Cold Edge. The puppy's ears twitched. It locked eyes with me. No flinching, no backing down. Just a steady, calculating stare from a baby wolf that clearly believed it was already in charge. "I like you already, kid." "So, Ager," I turned to my head hunter, "how do we tame them?" Now, this question sounded casual, but I was absolutely testing him. My intelligence system had already told me Ager was a beast-taming genius. Time to see if that intel was accurate. Ager straightened up. He knew it was an audition and laid it out. Step 1. Build dependency. Every time they eat, they see a human face. Eventually, they connect humans with survival. But food alone won't do it. Wolf pups are naturally aggressive. They'll guard their food, bite your hand, try to dominate you. When that happens, you pin them down. Hold them until they submit. In wolf world, the strongest fist makes the rules. Go on, I nodded. I could see him gaining confidence. He pointed at Cold Edge. Step 2. Establish hierarchy. Wolves have a strict pecking order. That big one is the natural alpha. His size, his attitude, everything about him screams leader. Tame him, and every other pup falls in line automatically. And your recommendation is? Ager took a deep breath and went for it. You should tame Cold Edge personally. If the future Wolf King sees you as its master, the entire pack will be absolutely loyal to you. The hunters around us went wide-eyed. Did this old man just suggest the Lord personally wrestle a wolf? I smiled. My intelligence system was right. This old guy absolutely knew his stuff. I stood up and clapped Ager on the shoulder. Good answer. From today, you're in charge of all beast-taming operations in Crimson Tide. The man froze. Then his face did that thing where shock transforms into overwhelming gratitude in about half a second. He dropped to one knee so fast I thought he tripped. I won't let you down. A few months ago, this guy was a wandering nobody in the frozen north, barely surviving on whatever he could hunt. If my group hadn't stumbled across him, he'd probably be a very cold, very dead popsicle by now. And now he was head of wolf operations for an entire territory. The other hunters watched with eyes greener than spring grass. Lucky bastard, right? His whole life just changed. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you give a good answer to the boss. Take notes, people. Meanwhile, in Frost Halberd City, the greatest heist in seed-buying history was going down. And I wasn't even there for it. Let me paint the picture of our victim, business partner. Jack was a small-time seed merchant from the south. The kind of guy who sold potato seeds for pocket change and dreamed of something bigger. One day, he overheard some drunk at a bar bragging about how the Northern Frontier Decree was sending nobles rushing north, and they all needed seeds. Supply can't keep up with demand, the drunk said. Jack's eyes probably turned into gold coins like a cartoon character. Down south, seed merchants are as common as horse droppings on a road, hundreds of them fighting over scraps. But the north? Barren, desperate, seed-starved. He'd be the only game in town. So this beautiful fool dumped his entire life savings into seeds, loaded up his little cart, and galloped north dreaming of swimming in gold. Then he arrived at Frost Halberd City, and his dreams hit a wall. The biggest city in the north looked like it had given up on itself years ago. Muddy streets, people dressed in rags, zero signs of a booming economy. The poor guy probably felt his wallet crying. But he'd already committed, so he set up his little stall on the east side of the market. Before he even finished unpacking, my 3 knights rolled up on horseback, covered in road dust, looking like they hadn't slept in days. Because they hadn't. Are you Jack, the seed seller? Jack nearly had a heart attack. How did they know his name? The man probably had a split second where he thought, has my reputation as the seed prince finally spread to the north? Oh, Jack. Sweet, sweet Jack. He puffed up his chest and started his sales pitch. Welcome, sirs. I've got potatoes, rye, oats, wheat. Lambert cut him off. We'll take everything. What? All of it. How much? Jack's brain short-circuited. Then rebooted. Then went into maximum overdrive profit calculation mode. His entire cart of seeds cost him less than 1 gold coin, including travel expenses. But these northern knights looked desperate and clearly had no idea about southern prices. So Jack held up 5 fingers, and tried to look casual. 5 gold coins. And that's the discount price. 5 gold coins. 5. For seeds that cost him maybe 80 copper total. This man was trying to charge a 500% markup and was still prepared to negotiate down. Lambert didn't even blink. Just pulled out 5 gold coins, tossed them over, and the 3 knights packed up every single seed like they were robbing a bank in reverse. Then they rode off without another word. Jack stood there holding 5 real, heavy, genuine gold coins, staring at his completely empty stall. The wind blew through where his merchandise used to be. I'm rich. The man was already planning to go back south, take out loans, buy hundreds of bags, and become the North's #1 seed tycoon. The North is a gold mine. He was probably screaming to himself. What Jack did not know, and this is the part that makes me grin every time I think about it, is that mixed in with his boring, ordinary cranberry seeds were about a dozen frost blood crimson berry seeds. Those things are worth thousands of gold coins. He basically sold a diamond mine for the price of a sandwich. And apparently his grand plan to become the seed king of the North didn't work out at all. But that's his story, not mine. Back at Crimson Tide, while Lambert was racing home with my precious seed haul, I was riding through the fields inspecting the planting operation. Everywhere I went, farmers stopped and bowed. But here's what I noticed, and genuinely liked. They weren't bowing out of fear. In most noble territories, peasants look at their lord like a mouse looks at a cat. Here, these people had actual respect in their eyes. The former slaves were the most intense. They stared at me with this burning fire in their eyes, practically screaming, "Notice me. See how hard I'm working. Freedom, please," without saying a word. Did I feel moved? Sure. Did I change anything? Nope. Here's the cold truth. Slave or free. Right now, everyone in Crimson Tide is basically working for me. The current system keeps them motivated. The hope of freedom makes people work harder than actual freedom does. Harsh. Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. I'll free them all eventually. But for now, they need to earn it. And they need to believe they're earning it. Mick jogged over, wiping sweat off his forehead, grinning so wide his wrinkles folded into wrinkles. My lord, the fertilizer is amazing. We're going to have a great harvest. I looked at the fields. The soil was dark, moist, soft. It had absorbed all that stinky fish gut poop powder compost beautifully. First crops? Rye, turnips, and potatoes, Mick rattled off instantly. They're cold-resistant and fast-growing. 3 months, and we'll have our first harvest. Good choices. Rye becomes bread. Turnips work as both vegetables and animal feed. And potatoes are the ultimate survival crop. Easy to grow, easy to store, and nearly impossible to mess up. Not the most exciting menu. But when you're building a settlement on frozen dirt, you don't start with exotic cuisine. You start with things that won't die. But boring crops were just phase 1. Once I get greenhouses up and running, I'm going full agricultural empire. More variety, more volume, total food independence. I stood on the edge of the field and just looked. Rich black soil gleaming in the sunlight. Hundreds of farmers planting seeds across land that was frozen solid just weeks ago. Every row they planted was a bet on the future. My future, their future, Crimson Tide's future. This barren wasteland that nobody wanted, I was turning it into something real. And honestly, that felt pretty amazing. Now, before I get to the fun stuff, something dark was brewing out in the frozen waste that I didn't know about yet. Somewhere in the north, a girl named Siv was riding for her life. Her father, Harold Frostmane, chief of the Cold Moon tribe, had been poisoned at a feast. Dropped dead in front of everyone, convulsing and screaming. Then her mother, her brothers, her sisters, one by one, executed or killed in convenient accidents. Their heads ended up on stone pillars, blood dripping onto white snow. Her last surviving brother, Seagull, grabbed her by the shoulders and said 3 words, "Run south. Never come back." She tried to argue. He grabbed her neck, forced her to look at him, and repeated it. Then he slapped her horse into a gallop and turned around to face the enemy alone. What happened next was terrifying and honestly kind of metal. Seagull activated something called boiling blood berserker mode, basically burning his own life force to become temporarily invincible. His eyes went red, his tattoos lit up, his muscles swelled like boulders, and he charged into the darkness laughing, screaming, "Let's all go to hell together." Siv rode south with a shattered heart, while her brother fought his last battle behind her. Heavy stuff. But I wouldn't learn about any of this until later. Meanwhile, back in MY World, it was fish day. Let me rewind 2 weeks. The river on the west side of Crimson Tide has this natural cycle. Every spring and fall, massive schools of fish swim upstream to spawn. The locals had always known this, but their fishing technology was, how do I put this politely, caveman level. Stabbing fish with wooden sticks. Scooping them with bamboo baskets. Like trying to fill a swimming pool with a teaspoon. So I sent 100 fishermen to the river with orders to build infrastructure. Real docks. Real boats. Real nets. The carpenters joined in, and after 2 sleepless weeks of construction, we had 10 functional fishing boats and an actual dock. Then yesterday, my intelligence system delivered the goods. Tomorrow, massive fish run on the Western River. Tomorrow. As in, perfect timing. Everything we'd built over 2 weeks was about to be tested on day 1. I gathered every fisherman at the dock and gave them the speech. You know, the inspirational kind. Remember what this riverbank looked like a month ago? Nothing. And look at it now. Boats, nets, a dock. You built this. We're not begging fate for scraps anymore. We're taking what's ours. Today, the days of hunger yendi. Let's bring home a full haul. Full haul. They roared back, waving nets and spears in the air. Nailed it. I should write speeches professionally. Standing next to me was Luke, my newly appointed head of fishing operations. And this poor man was sweating bullets. Not from the heat. It was still freezing, but from pure anxiety. See, Luke trusted me. He'd watched me be right about everything for a month straight. But this was fishing. Fishing is gambling with water. Even the best fisherman alive can't guarantee a big catch on any specific day. And here I was, standing on a dock, telling 100 people that today was the day. I could practically hear his internal monologue. What if there's no fish? What if that beautiful speech becomes a joke? What if the Lord gets embarrassed and throws me into the river as bait? He snuck a glance at me. I was just standing there smiling calmly, like I could already see the fish jumping into our nets. Is this what leadership looks like? He muttered to himself, clearly confusing my intelligence system-backed certainty for raw charisma. I'll take it. Ready? I asked. Already, Luke stammered, then climbed onto the platform and bellowed. Boys, move out. Stick to the plan. My fishing operation was organized into 3 teams because I don't do things halfway. Team 1, the heavy hitters. 10 boats spread across the river, deploying massive barrier nets across the middle of the channel. Any fish swimming upstream would hit this wall of netting like rush hour commuters hitting a closed subway gate. Team 2, the shore crew. Smaller group working the shallow waters along the banks, casting nets for the fish that tried to sneak past by hugging the edges. Smart fish. Not smart enough. Team 3, old school squad. Guys with spears standing in the water, manually stabbing anything that slipped through the nets. Plus some fishermen setting up traps along the banks for the extra sneaky fish that refused to go near nets at all. Basically, I turned a simple river into a fish prison with no exits. Now all we needed was for the fish to actually show up. And if my intelligence system was wrong about this, I was going to have a very awkward conversation with 100 fishermen holding sharp, pointy objects. Luke screamed, "Go!" and the river turned into absolute pandemonium. 10 boats fanned out like a military formation, paddles churning the water into a frenzy. The fishermen dropped those massive improved nets into the river, and the nets snapped tight like a trap door slamming shut. Hold the line. Don't let them through. Old Reg was yelling so hard the veins on his arms looked like they were trying to escape his skin. The ropes in his hands were pulled tighter than guitar strings. Then, dark shadows. Hundreds of them, surging through the water like a living tidal wave. They're in the nets. They're in. Someone screamed at first, and then the whole river exploded. Fat, chunky river fish were slamming into the nets like commuters hitting a subway turnstile at rush hour. 10 boats formed an iron wall formation, and these fish had nowhere to go. The fishermen hauled on the ropes, locking them in tighter and tighter. The surface erupted, silver scales flashing in the sunlight, fish leaping out of the water like tiny acrobats auditioning for a circus they'd never get into. It was honestly beautiful. If I weren't so focused on the feeding my people part, I might have just stood there admiring it. Pull, pull. This is the most fish I've ever seen in my entire life. By the time they hauled in the last net, the boats were literally tilting under the weight. Every deck was covered in flopping, wriggling, very alive, and very angry fish. Each one was way bigger than normal river fish, fat, shiny, and absolutely gorgeous. 2,000 fish from the boat team alone. Enough to feed all of Crimson Tide for days. Over on the shore, Team 2 was killing it too. An old fisherman was coaching a nervous young apprentice. Watch your angle, kid. Throw wrong and you'll miss the whole school. The kid took a deep breath, gripped the net, and launched it. Perfect arc. The net sailed through the air like a magic carpet and dropped right on top of a cluster of fish. Got them. He pulled up the rope and the water went crazy. Fat 2-foot-long fish thrashing around trying to escape. He grabbed one that was literally the length of his arm and held it up like a trophy. Imagine this one in a soup. Everyone was grinning so hard their faces might have broken. Hundreds more fish landed in their wooden buckets, packed so full the tails were sticking out over the edges. Meanwhile, Team 3, my spear squad, was doing things the old-fashioned way and absolutely loving it. These native fishermen stood in the shallows, eyes locked on the water like hawks, spears gleaming. There, one veteran fisherman whipped his arm forward. The spear pierced the surface with a satisfying splash and came back up with a 3-pound monster skewered on the end, still fighting for its life. Within minutes, their buckets were overflowing with 7, 8 massive fish, tails still slapping over the rims. And way down on the far shallows, the trap team was quietly collecting bonus fish. They'd wait, watch, wait some more. Now, up came a cage with a dozen fish inside. Smaller ones, but the kind with delicate, tasty meat, the fancy stuff. The whole operation ran for several hours. When the nets were finally pulled in and the numbers were tallied, 3,000 fish. Over 3,000, the dock erupted. People were screaming, hugging, high-fiving, crying. You'd think we'd won a war instead of caught dinner. The Lord predicted this. He said there'd be fish, and there were. I've never seen fishing like this. This much in one day. The Lord doesn't just run a territory, he's a fishing genius too. I stood up on the dock, smiling calmly, soaking in the praise. Was it technically my intelligence system that told me the fish were coming? Yes. Did they need to know that? Absolutely not. Let them think I'm a fish psychic. It's better for morale. Poor Luke was standing below me looking like a man who'd just watched a magic trick and couldn't figure out the secret. All that anxiety, all that, what if there's no fish? Panic, gone. Replaced by pure awe. He looked up at me like I was some kind of prophet. I gave him a subtle nod. You're welcome, Luke. Now, 3,000 fish is amazing. But 3,000 fish rotting is a disaster. Food doesn't manage itself. So I immediately started thinking about preservation. First, though, celebration. It had been exactly 1 month since I arrived at Crimson Tide. 1 month. And in that time we'd gone from a starving, demoralized wasteland to a place with farms, fishing boats, a dock, organized labor, and now a mountain of fresh fish. Time for a feast. Not just to celebrate the catch, but to recognize everyone who made it happen. The fishermen, the carpenters who built the boats, the craftsmen, the soldiers. They deserved it. But the feast would only use up a fraction of the haul. The rest needed to last. We had to think long-term. Winter would come again eventually, and when it did, having stockpiled food would be the difference between survival and starvation. I also wasn't about to let this river get fished dry like an idiot. Sustainable fishing, people. I ordered all net holes widened so baby fish could slip through and keep growing. Fixed daily fishing hours only. Mandatory 1 day per week of NO fishing. Let the river breathe. Because a river with no fish tomorrow isn't worth 3,000 fish today. Plus, I was already planning fish farms, selecting the best breeding fish, setting up dedicated aquaculture zones. No more depending entirely on nature's generosity. We'd make our own supply. But right now, staring at this ridiculous mountain of flopping fish on the dock, one idea popped into my head for long-term preservation. Something I wanted to try. Something from my, let's call it, previous life experience. Stay tuned. Evening light was pouring over Crimson Tide, and I was standing in my brand new smoking shed near the hot springs, poking at fish like a celebrity chef judging a cooking show. I pressed a finger against one of the hanging smoked fish. Dry, springy, golden brown skin. Perfect. And my lord, Sally was standing next to me, wringing her hands like she was about to receive a death sentence instead of a food review. The poor woman looked like she'd pass out if I said anything negative. These are great, I told her. Color, texture, all good. She deflated with relief, so fast I thought she might collapse. It's only because you taught us. We could and never have done this without you. Your hands did the work, I said, tearing off a piece and popping it in my mouth. Okay, it was a bit tough and dry. But once you chewed it, rich, smoky, deeply savory. Honestly pretty tasty for a first attempt at inventing an entirely new food preservation method in a medieval frozen wasteland. Standing behind me was Hilko, arms crossed, yawning so wide I could see his tonsils. His dark circles had dark circles. The man looked like he hadn't slept since birth. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not intentionally working him to death. It's just that out of 1,000 people in this territory, exactly 2 of us can read and write. Him and me. So by simple math, he's handling 50% of all literacy-dependent tasks for an entire settlement. Is that basically a medieval 996 work schedule? Yes. Yes, it is. Today I brought him along as a treat. Here, eat a fish. He bit into it with the enthusiasm of a man who's been bribed with snacks before. Actually not bad. Thanks, Sally, I said. Sally immediately panicked again. No, it was all your instructions. I don't know anything about. I let her ramble while I stared at the fish and thought about the bigger picture. Here's my problem. Winter. Every year, the river basically turns into an ice cube and fishing drops to 0. If we don't preserve food now, we'll be starving in 6 months. So I came up with something nobody here had ever tried, using the geothermal heat from the hot springs to smoke fish. When I first told Hilko the plan, he looked at me like I'd suggested cooking dinner on the sun. Hot spring smoked fish? That can actually work? It removes more moisture than air drying and lasts way longer, I explained. Simple science. Well, simple for someone from where I'm from. I picked Sally to lead the operation because she was detail-oriented and careful, exactly what you need when the difference between preserved food and rotten garbage is a few hours of smoking time. The process went like this. Step 1, gut the fish, keep the skin on. The skin holds everything together during smoking and locks in flavor. Then salt cure them for hours or up to a day depending on humidity. Removes moisture and kills bacteria. Step 2, build smoking racks near the hot springs using branches, bamboo, and vines. Sally's team even added windbreaks and insulation panels so the geothermal steam would fully penetrate the fish without losing heat. Smart ladies. Step 3, the actual smoking. Tricky part. Geothermal heat isn't consistent, so each batch took 2 to 3 days across multiple rounds. Too hot, and the fish turns into jerky. Too cool, and it rots on the rack. Every batch needed constant monitoring and adjustment. After days of trial and error, Sally nailed it. The fish hanging in that shed were Crimson Tide's first successful preserved food. Our ticket through winter. Scale it up, I told her. Her eyes went wide. In this world, women don't get put in charge of much. Their status is somewhere between furniture and afterthought. But if Sally's team became the official smoked fish operation, that's real responsibility, real importance, real respect. You want US to be in charge of all the smoking. You're already the best at it. Who else would I pick? She grabbed her apron so tight. Her knuckles went white, bowed so fast, she almost head-butt the smoking rack, and said, "Thank you, my lord," in a voice that was definitely trying not to cry. "I should be thanking you," I said, and I meant it. These women had worked themselves ragged perfecting this process. Then a knight walked up and whispered the magic words. "Lambert is back. Double good news day." I speed-walked to the residential area, and there they were, Lambert and his 2 knights, dusty, exhausted, but mission complete. Lambert dropped to one knee. Mission accomplished, music to my ears. Reliable, steady Lambert. The man could deliver a live dragon and he'd still kneel calmly and say, "Mission accomplished," like he'd just returned a library book. "Rest tonight," I told them. "Tomorrow's the awards ceremony. You'll all be properly recognized." "Yes, my lord." All 3 bowed and handed over the seed packages before dragging themselves off to bed. Riding at full speed using battle aura for days straight would drain anyone, even elite knights. I watched them leave, then walked to my office. My attendant followed carrying armfuls of seed bags. Bags lined up neatly on my desk. I waved the attendant out, waited for the door to click shut, and then, like a kid opening Christmas presents, I started searching through the seeds. My intelligence system guided me right to them. I picked one up and rolled it between my fingers. Reddish-brown, smooth, shiny. Looked exactly like a regular cranberry seed. If I didn't have my cheat code intelligence system, I'd have tossed it in with the rest without a second thought. But this tiny little seed? This was a frost blood crimson berry, a magically mutated superfruit that only grows in extreme cold. Eating these strengthens your body and supercharges a knight's battle aura cultivation. Let me translate that into business terms. If I can successfully grow these, Crimson Tide will have a monopoly on the most sought-after strategic resource in the entire kingdom. Every noble house, every knight order, every military commander would be begging to buy from us. I stared at that seed in my palm, and I swear I could see mountains of gold waving at me from the future. Come to Papa, little berry. We're going to make each other very rich. 1 month. 30 days since I showed up at this frozen dumpster fire of a territory, and look at us now. Time for a party. I stood on a wooden stage that my guys had slapped together, looking down at the crowd. 12 knights in full iron armor flanked me on both sides, standing perfectly still like the world's most intimidating bookends. Very dramatic. I planned it that way. A horn blasted through the night sky, BWHH, and the show began. 30-something knights dropped to one knee in perfect unison, left fist on chest, right hand gripping their swords, and they recited the oath I'd written for them. We believe in the dragon ancestor. We follow the Lord of Crimson Tide. Loyal to Lewis Calvin, we swear to defend Crimson Tide's glory with blood and sweat. Did I write that oath myself? Yes. Was I a little too proud of it? Also yes. Did it sound incredible echoing across the square with 30 voices saying it at once? Absolutely. The crowd went ballistic. Soldiers banged their shields. Farmers raised their hoes and walking sticks like weapons. Kids screamed just because everyone else was screaming. Beautiful chaos. I raised my hand, and the noise died down like I'd hit a mute button. 1,000 pairs of eyes locked onto me. Showtime. 1 month ago, this place was empty, barren, and hopeless. We faced poverty, hunger, blizzards, and wild beasts. Pause for dramatic effect. Eye contact sweep across the crowd. Classic speech technique. But we survived. And that's because of you. You built the first shelters so children and elders wouldn't freeze in the snow. You caught the first fish so your brothers and sisters wouldn't starve. You plowed the first fields and planted the first seeds so this dead land could have a future. I let that sink in. All of this because of you. Your sweat brought this frozen wasteland back to life. Half the crowd was already tearing up. These people had never heard a lord give credit to commoners. In their experience, the best you could hope for from nobility was not getting whipped today. And here I was, standing on a stage, telling them they were the heroes. Was I being strategic? Sure. Was it also true? Absolutely. Win-win. And in Crimson Tide, effort gets rewarded. I don't care who you are. If you work hard and stay loyal, you get what you deserve. Now let me honor the people who went above and beyond. Dead silence. You could hear heartbeats. Agricultural Officer Mick, that hunched-over, dirt-covered, permanently quiet man stumbled forward. His old boots slipped on the wooden stairs, almost ate it in front of everyone. But when he looked up at me, something changed. For the first time in maybe his entire life, his back was straight. Mick, you transformed our farming methods and brought dead soil back to life. I pointed at the fields in the distance. I'm promoting you to Chief of Agriculture, expanding your authority over all farmland, and giving you a personal plot for experimental crops. Tears rolled down his weathered face. Thank you, my lord. The crowd erupted. Farmers were going nuts. Craftsman representative, Mac, a sun-darkened old man, marched up the stairs like he'd been waiting for this moment his whole life. Your architectural innovations made our buildings stronger and warmer. You literally kept people from freezing to death. I gestured at the rows of semi-underground communal houses around the square. I'm giving you command of the entire Craftsman Corps and additional funding. Mac was shaking so hard I thought he might vibrate off the stage. I won't let you down. Fishing Officer Luke. And on it went. Over a dozen people called up. Knights, craftsmen, hunters, farmers. Most of them came from nothing. Some were former slaves. Every single one looked like they'd been told they won the lottery, while simultaneously being struck by lightning. I walked to each person and personally hung a medal around their neck. Now, were these medals made of gold? Silver? Precious gems? Nope. They were wooden. Hand-carved by a carpenter because we're broke and this is the frozen north and we don't have precious metals lying around. But the way these people held those wooden medallions, like they were made of diamond, cradling them in both hands, terrified of dropping them, staring at the carved surface like it was the most beautiful thing they'd ever owned. It probably was. These people gave their blood and sweat for Crimson Tide, I shouted to the crowd. Show them your appreciation. Thunderous applause. The award winners stood tall, tears streaming, wooden medals catching the firelight. These were fishermen, hunters, craftsmen, slaves, nobodies, by this world's standards. And right now they were standing in the spotlight receiving the highest honor their territory could offer. If I told any of them to walk through fire at that moment, they would have sprinted into it. And everyone else who worked hard deserves applause too. More cheering. This time for the whole crowd. Because honestly, everyone had contributed something. Even the guy whose only skill was staying alive. At least he was consistent. Then came the moment the slaves had been holding their breath for. I looked out over the crowd, specifically at the people with worn-out clothes and slave brands still visible on their skin. They had their heads down, but I could see their eyes, flickering with desperate, fragile hope. I made a promise, and today I'm keeping it. You could have heard of Snowflake Land. I read out a list of names, slaves who'd worked the hardest, contributed the most, gone above and beyond over the past month. Each one stood frozen when their name was called, not believing it, until someone next to them literally shoved them toward the stage. You are now free. My knights stepped forward and tossed their slave documents into the fire. Gone. Just like that. These people hit the ground immediately, crying, kowtowing, sobbing thank yous into the frozen dirt. It was intense. And the slaves who didn't get freed? They weren't angry. I could see it in their eyes. Jealousy, sure. Regret, definitely. But mostly, hope. Next month, it'll be me. I just need to work harder. Exactly the reaction I wanted. Loyalty and ability matter more than bloodline, I announced. From today forward, Crimson Tide will have a permanent reward system. Anyone who contributes will be recognized. The square exploded. Every single person, free, slave, soldier, farmer, was glowing. Social mobility wasn't some impossible fairy tale anymore. It was real. Work hard, get rewarded. Simple. Revolutionary. I raised my cup of liquor. Firelight danced across the surface like liquid gold. To Crimson Tide's future. Cheers, cheers. 1,000 cups went up. 1,000 voices roared into the night. And me? I took a sip, looked out over my people celebrating in the firelight, and thought, not bad for 1 month, Lewis. Not bad at all. The feast was everything I wanted it to be. Roasted fish everywhere, people laughing, eating, toasting each other. Women were carrying out plates of freshly cooked fish like a never-ending conveyor belt of deliciousness. Everyone was sitting together, soldiers, farmers, former slaves, all stuffing their faces and having the time of their lives. To our great Lord, someone yelled, and suddenly 1,000 cups were in the air. To our great Lord, pure chaos. Beautiful, loud, slightly drunk chaos. I was sitting in the main seat, watching it all, grinning like an idiot. You know what? I genuinely preferred this over the fancy noble banquets back south. Those were all fake smiles, hidden daggers, and political backstabbing disguised as polite conversation. Here, people were just happy, real, messy, loud happiness. Give me a bonfire and honest laughter over a crystal chandelier and poison wine any day. Then the alcohol hit my brain and I did something stupid. Someone handed me a wooden lyre, and instead of politely declining like a normal dignified lord, I started playing it. And singing. Not a song from this world, oh no. My drunk brain reached all the way back to earth and pulled out freaking Edelweiss from the sound of music. Edelweiss, Edelweiss, every morning you greet me. The entire square went silent. 1,000 people holding fish and booze, frozen mid-chew, staring at me like I'd opened a portal to another dimension. Which, in a way, I kind of had. When the last note faded, the crowd absolutely lost it. Standing ovation from people who didn't even know what a standing ovation was. Another one. The Lord can sing. Another. More drinks for the Lord. Even my stiffest knights were cracking up. I shook my head, laughed, grabbed a chunk of fish, and let the party roll on into the night. Next morning, I woke up to sunlight stabbing me through the curtains like a personal attack. My head was pounding. I am not. As it turns out, a heavy drinker. Definitely overdid it, I groaned, rubbing my temples. Normally I'm up before dawn, meditating, running my breathing technique to cultivate battle aura. Today, I slept in like a college student after finals week. First thing I did was reach over to the other side of the bed to make sure it was empty. It was. Thank God. No drunk mistakes. We're clean, people. After washing up, I sat cross-legged and tried my tidal breathing cultivation technique. The battle aura flowed through my veins, but hit that same stupid wall it always does. Mid-rank formal night. Stuck. Can't break through. My talent is just painfully average. Other people punch through cultivation bottlenecks like paper. For me, it's like head-butting concrete. If only I could find something like that northern crystal cod again to boost my progress. Come on, stupid intelligence system. Give me something useful. Speaking of which, I opened my daily intel feed. 3 updates today. Number 1. After the feast, Agricultural Officer Mick proposed to Tanya. She said yes. I nearly choked. Mick? The silent dirt wizard who communicates exclusively through soil samples and awkward nods. That Mick asked a woman to marry him? And she said yes? Tanya, I knew her. A tough local widow in her 30s, raising 3 kids alone. Strong, capable, no nonsense. And somehow my most socially awkward employee won her over. I genuinely have no idea how that conversation went. Did he just hand her a potato and grunt romantically? Good for him, though. And hey, more future citizens for Crimson Tide. The population grows itself when you let people be happy. Number 2. Ice Wolf pup Cold Edge has defeated all other pups and become their alpha. Now that was expected. Cold Edge was always built different, bigger, meaner, and radiating that born to rule energy since day one. While the other pups were whimpering and cuddling, this little monster was out there establishing dominance through violence. Just like nature intended. That's my wolf, I nodded with satisfaction. Picking Cold Edge was one of my best calls. Future Wolf Cavalry Alpha, right on schedule. Number 3. Former Cold Moon Tribe Princess SIV has fled to the Crimson Tide territory border. She is unconscious in the wilderness and will be eaten by a frost bear at approximately 5 p.m. My smile vanished instantly. While that escalated quickly, I'd been getting intel updates on the Cold Moon Tribe for weeks. Ever since their chief got poisoned, the whole tribe spiraled into a bloodbath. The old chief's family got systematically wiped out, executed, assassinated, accidental deaths. Faction leaders were tearing each other apart fighting for control. Total nightmare. But I never expected the tribe's princess to show up at my doorstep. Unconscious, in a frozen wasteland, with a bear appointment at 5 o'clock. How is this my problem? I muttered, massaging my forehead. 2 options. Save her, or let the bear have dinner. Not saving her was the smart move. The Cold Moon Tribe situation was a tangled political mess, and taking in their princess could drag me into problems I absolutely did not need right now. She was already unconscious and practically dead anyway. Just let nature take its course. Clean hands, 0 complications. But I couldn't do it. Look, I'm not a saint. I run a territory with slave labor and a manipulation-based motivation system. I literally drugged puppies last week. But letting a helpless girl get mauled by a bear when I know it's happening and I can stop it? That crosses a line even I won't cross. My conscience would eat me alive, and honestly, I deserve it. Plus, from a strategic standpoint, tiny, microscopic, probably never gonna happen standpoint, if I ever got powerful enough, having the Cold Moon Princess under my protection could theoretically give me a claim to influence their tribe. File that under insane long-term fantasies, but still. So, heart says save her, brain says the risk is manageable, and my wildest ambitions say maybe possibly there's upside. Decision made. Lambert, I called out. My guardian knight appeared instantly. My lord, I'm going hunting. Get things ready. Lambert blinked. In 1 entire month, I hadn't taken a single break. No walks, no hobbies, no leisure time whatsoever. And now, the morning after getting drunk, I suddenly wanted to go hunt? But Lambert was a professional. He didn't question it. He just nodded and said, I'll arrange hunters and knights. Perfect. Nobody needs to know we're actually on a princess rescue mission. As far as everyone else is concerned, the Lord just wants some fresh air and maybe to stab a deer. Totally normal behavior. Nothing suspicious at all. Meanwhile, somewhere in the frozen wasteland, SIV was having the worst week of her entire life. Her hands were frozen to the reins. Her horse was stumbling, covered in frost sweat, barely alive. Behind her, fire, screams, and the memory of her brother Seagull shoving her onto this horse and yelling, "Run south. Never come back," before turning around to go full berserker mode on their enemies. Everyone she loved was dead. Father, mother, brothers, sisters, all gone. And she was running with no destination, no food, no plan. Just south. Always south. She survived on river water, tree bark, and whatever sad little berries she could find. Real gourmet dining. Then her horse finally gave out, collapsed with a long, heartbreaking whinny, and took SIV tumbling into the snow with it. She tried to get up. Her fingers wouldn't move. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw before passing out was probably her own breath freezing in the air. Tragic stuff. But don't worry, that's where I come in. The reluctant hero on a fake hunting trip. My hunting party rode north looking like the most overdressed rabbit-chasing squad in history. Knights in armor, experienced hunters scanning the terrain, everyone trying their hardest to impress because the Lord was personally leading this expedition. They had no idea we were actually on a rescue mission. As far as they knew, I just randomly woke up and decided I wanted to shoot things. To sell the act, I actually had to hunt. So when a tracker spotted rabbit prints, I pulled out my short bow, nocked an arrow, and waited. There it was, a gray-white rabbit poking its dumb little head out of some dead grass. One shot, arrow through the neck. Rabbit down. Clean kill. Amazing shot. Oh, here we go. Incredible, my lord. Such precision. The kingdom's royal hunters couldn't match this. If we had 100 archers like you, no barbarian army could touch us. Then, and I cannot make this up, one knight literally picked up the dead rabbit with both hands, carried it to me like a sacred offering, and said with a completely straight face, "My lord, this rabbit must be descended from the king of beasts." That's the only explanation for why it was so difficult to hit. It was a rabbit, sitting still, 10 feet away. My eye twitched. These people were world-class suck-ups. Olympic-level flattery. If bootlicking were a sport, my knights would sweep every medal. But honestly, I didn't mind. A lord's reputation is built on little, legendary moments like these. By tonight, the story would be that I shot a magical dire rabbit at 200 yards while blindfolded during an earthquake. Reputation management through exaggeration, it's basically medieval PR. We kept riding, and the hunting was genuinely good. The guys bagged several fat deer and even pulled some rare cold water fish from an icy river. Everyone was having a blast, laughing and joking. I caught myself actually enjoying it. The fresh air, the camaraderie, the occasional rabbit assassination. Maybe I should take breaks more often, I thought, watching my men laugh. Then a scout came sprinting back with a weird look on his face. "My lord, there's a girl up ahead." Dead silence. Everyone turned to stare at him. "A girl?" Lambert frowned. "In the middle of nowhere, near the frozen river. She's unconscious in the snow. Found her. Right on schedule." I kept my face perfectly neutral even though my brain was doing a victory lap. "Lead the way." We pushed through some low trees and there she was, SIV, lying face up in the snow, curled slightly, white hair tangled and dusted with frost. Her fur coat was shredded, her shoulders and arms exposed and turning purple from the cold. Fresh wounds on her body told the story of a brutal escape. But even unconscious, her face had this stubborn, defiant expression, like she was fighting death itself and refusing to lose, even in her sleep. An experienced hunter knelt down and examined her, then his face changed. "My lord, she's from a northern tribe." Another hunter checked the patterns on her belt. His voice dropped. "Cold Moon tribe." Silence. My knights exchanged nervous glances. The Cold Moon tribe was basically the boogeyman of the northern provinces, the barbarian horde that had been raiding imperial territory for generations. Finding one of their people was like finding a live grenade in your backyard. I looked at her for exactly 1 second. Bring her back. Get her treated. No hesitation. No debate. My knights were professional enough not to argue, even if a few of them were clearly thinking, "Are we really rescuing an enemy tribesperson right now?" Yes. Yes, we are. Because I said so, and I'm the Lord and I already used an expensive life potion on this plan in my head. So we're committed. They carefully lifted SIV onto a warhorse. The hunters loaded up the cart with our hunting haul, deer, fish, rabbits, the works, and we headed home. From the outside, it looked like a perfectly normal hunting trip that happened to stumble across a lost girl. Total coincidence. Nothing suspicious. Now, I should mention, I know some of my smarter people are starting to wonder about my luck. Every crisis predicted, every opportunity seized, every decision turning out perfectly. Lambert hasn't said anything, but I've caught him giving me these thoughtful sideways looks. Hilko definitely suspects something. The hunters probably think I can see the future. And honestly, in this fantasy world, they've settled on the most logical explanation their brains can produce. The dragon ancestor is blessing me. Divine favor. Holy guidance. I'm basically a prophet chosen by their god. Could I explain that I actually have a daily intelligence system that feeds me information like a cosmic news ticker? Sure. But they'd have no frame of reference for that concept. There's no word for cheat code in medieval fantasy language. So, blessed by the dragon ancestor it is. Works for me. Back at Crimson Tide, we rushed SIV into an empty room and called in our best healer, a native medicine woman who knew her herbs. The girl was in rough shape. Lips cracked from dehydration, skin ice pale, eyebrows furrowed even while unconscious, like she was arm wrestling the Grim Reaper in her dreams. I pulled out a life potion from my family's personal supply. These things are not cheap. We're talking serious money in a tiny bottle. I handed it to the doctor. Give her this. The doctor's eyes went wide. She clearly knew how expensive this was, but she carefully poured the liquid between SIV's cracked lips. A few minutes later, some color crept back into the girl's face. Her breathing steadied. Still unconscious, but the actively dying vibe had downgraded to sleeping very aggressively. She'd live. Probably. That potion was expensive, I said, staring at her unconscious face. I really hope you wake up, because if she didn't, that would be the worst return on investment in Crimson Tide history. Man, if only someone in this territory knew how to make magic soil. I said it casually, like I was talking to myself. Just a little sigh. A harmless complaint. Totally not directed at anyone specific. I glanced at Hilko. He was hunched over his little desk, scribbling fish production numbers, looking like a raccoon that hadn't slept in 3 lifetimes. His dark circles had evolved. They weren't circles anymore. They were dark canyons. He paused, rubbed his temples, went back to writing. Good. Seed planted. Now water it. 10 minutes later. Sure would be nice if we could make our own magic soil around here. Hilko's pen stopped again. I could see his brain buffering. 20 minutes later, magic soil. If only someone could help with that. His eye twitched. Just slightly. Beautiful. An hour later. What I wouldn't give for someone who understands alchemy enough to. I know a little bit about it. There it is. Hilko blurted it out like a man who'd been holding in a sneeze for 6 hours. Then immediately looked like he wanted to punch himself in the face. I learned some basics. At a church school. Years ago. Church school. Church. School. Teaching alchemy. That's like saying you learned brain surgery from a cooking class. The lie was so bad it practically had a neon sign flashing. I'm lying above it. But I put on my best, oh really, face. Wide eyes. Slight head tilt. Academy Award performance. Oh, that's wonderful. Could you help me out then? The silence that followed was exquisite. I could practically hear Hilko's internal dialogue. Did he? Did he actually buy that? There's no way he bought that. But his face says he bought it. Did this idiot really just believe that church schools teach alchemy? Or is he? Oh no. Oh no. He knows. He's known this whole time. He stared at me. I stared back with the most innocent expression I could manage. 2 men locked in a silent battle of, I know that you know that I know. Let me explain what was actually happening here. I needed magic soil, specifically highly acidic soil, to grow my precious frost blood crimson berries. These magical superberries only thrive in strong acid soil. Plant them in neutral or alkaline dirt and they'd wither, turn yellow, and die without producing a single fruit. All those gold coins I spent on seeds. Wasted. Problem. I understood the theory but had zero clue about the actual recipes and ratios for making acidic magic soil. That's advanced alchemy stuff. Solution. The secret alchemist sitting 3 feet away from me, pretending to be a normal literate guy. I'd been waiting for Hilko to reveal his identity on his own. Patiently. For weeks. But these berries couldn't wait. and this kid was apparently prepared to take his secret to the grave rather than admit he knew alchemy. So I had to force his hand using the most annoying weapon known to mankind: repetition. 6 times. It took 6 repetitions of the same complaint before he cracked. I was basically the medieval equivalent of a car alarm that won't shut off. Hilko sighed, the deep, exhausted sigh of a man who has accepted his fate. Fine, but I have one condition. 1 day off per week. Now it was my turn to be silent. 1 day off per week. In Crimson Tide, where I, the Lord, hadn't taken a single day off in an entire month. Where we were so short-staffed that losing Hilko for even a few hours meant paperwork would literally pile up to the ceiling. But then again, if I kept working him at this pace, the kid would straight up die at his desk. And a dead assistant is significantly less useful than a rested one. Basic math. Deal, I sighed. Hilko wrote me a shopping list for magic soil ingredients. Most of it was standard stuff, available at the Frost Halberd City Market. But one item made me pause. Magic marrow. You've got some nerve, I laughed, looking up at him. I'm just listing the standard recipe. Hilko shrugged with the casualness of a man ordering the most expensive thing on the menu with someone else's wallet. You could use substitutes, but the quality would be terrible. Yeah, I know. He spread his hands. The universal gesture for, not my problem. I rubbed my forehead. Magic marrow was pricey. The good news? We actually had some. In the mining area northwest of Crimson Tide. The bad news? Frost giants. According to my intelligence system, several of these lovely creatures had been hanging around the mine since spring started. And by lovely, I mean absolutely terrifying murder mountains made of ice and rage. Frost giants are basically the North's version of a natural disaster with legs. Enormous bodies, incredible strength, skin as hard as solid ice. Regular weapons bounce off them like rubber balls. And if that wasn't bad enough, they could manipulate cold itself, summoning freezing storms that turned entire battlefields into death zones. Imagine fighting a building-sized ice wizard who can freeze you solid just by being angry near you. I'd known about them for a while but kept it filed under future problem. The territory was in development mode. The mine was far from residential areas, and I didn't know enough about their weaknesses to risk an attack. So I just posted a few scouts to watch from a distance and gather intel. But now, my intelligence system had spent the past month feeding me data on frost giant vulnerabilities. I finally had enough information to make a real plan. And with the territory running smoothly, I had the bandwidth to deal with it. Plus, I needed that magic marrow. No marrow, no magic soil. No magic soil, no frost bloodberries. No berries, no mountains of gold. The math was simple. Those giants had to go. Time to multitask, get the mining resources, and eliminate the monster threat in one shot. I called in 2 nights first and handed them Hilko's shopping list. Go to Frost Halberd City. Buy everything on this list. Fast. Yes, sir. Gone in seconds. Then I summoned Lambert. Gather every night. Full combat readiness. Lambert blinked. The man's version of extreme surprise. Understood, my lord. Target, the northwestern mountains. We're hunting frost giants. To his credit, Lambert didn't flinch. Didn't ask questions. Didn't say, "Are you insane?" Just nodded, said, "Yes, sir," and marched out to rally the troops. Minutes later, war horses were screaming, armor was clanking, and a column of Crimson Tide's finest knights thundered northwest toward the mining district. And somewhere behind me, Hilko was probably sitting at his desk thinking, all I asked for was 1 day off, and now we're going to war with giants. Welcome to Crimson Tide, buddy. Things escalate fast around here. I stood on a rocky ledge overlooking the valley and watched 4 frost giants playing what I can only describe as baseball. I'm not joking. They were throwing boulders at each other and smacking them with massive ice rock clubs, sending stones flying across the canyon like home runs. They were genuinely having fun, laughing, well, roaring, and stomping around like kids at recess. If kids were 5 meters tall, covered in ice armor, and capable of freezing you to death by standing too close. Are they seriously playing baseball right now? I muttered. Nobody answered because everyone around me was too busy being terrified to appreciate my commentary. Let me paint the picture. Average height, 17 feet. Bodies wrapped in natural armor made of ice crystals and rock fragments fused together. Muscles so thick and knotted they looked like someone had stuffed boulders under their skin. Their clubs were 6 meters long, basically frozen telephone poles, and every casual swing left craters in the ground. Oh, and they each radiated this pale blue freezing fog. Get too close, and your blood literally slows down. Stay too long, and you become a decorative ice sculpture. 4 of them. Thank God, only 4. If there had been 40, I would have packed up Crimson Tide and relocated to a different continent. Possibly a different planet. But 4? For I could handle. My intelligence system had spent weeks feeding me their weaknesses. I'd preset traps across the valley, and I'd brought the heavy artillery, 53 knights, and over 100 soldiers. 13-to-1 ratio per giant. Advantage, me. Everyone ready? I asked quietly. All units in position, my lord. Good. I raised my right hand, fingers together. Let's show these overgrown snowmen what Crimson Tide is made of. I dropped my hand. Go. The signal officer waved the battle flag. Across the valley, hidden units sprang into action simultaneously. A whistling fire arrow streaked across the sky like a red comet and slammed into the nearest giant's chest. The 4 giants froze mid-game. Ironic, for ice creatures, then roared so loud the rocks under my feet vibrated. Playtime was over. They were pissed. Split them up, Lambert bellowed from below. 4 knight squads peeled off in different directions, each targeting 1 giant. They jabbed with lances, aiming for the sensitive spots my intel had identified. Knee joints, face, finger gaps, armpits. Basically anywhere the ice armor was thin or absent. Poke, retreat, poke again. Classic matador strategy. Make the bull angry. Make the bull chase you. Make the bull run exactly where you want it to go. The giants swung their massive clubs in furious arcs, each swing powerful enough to split the earth. But my knights were faster and smarter. They danced backward, using terrain and speed to stay just out of reach, while luring each giant into a separate kill zone. Within minutes, all 4 giants were isolated in different trap areas. Phase 1, complete. Now, the trap teams launched weighted rope nets, heavy-duty reinforced ones we'd prepared specifically for this fight. The thick cords wrapped around the giants' legs, tangling their feet, freezing them mid-stride. While they stumbled and clawed at the ropes, flanking knights charged in and drove lances straight into the backs of their knees, the thinnest point in their ice armor. Blue-black blood sprayed everywhere. The giants screamed. Beautiful music. Pull back. Rotate. My soldiers didn't get greedy. Hit. Retreat. Reposition. Never stay in one place long enough for a giant to retaliate. Meanwhile, another squad hurled torches at the giants' bodies. Fire against ice. Simple physics. The flames licked across their armor, and I watched with satisfaction as the supposedly indestructible ice plating began to crack and crumble like a melting glacier on fast forward. Archers lit their arrows and sent volleys straight at the giants' faces. Multiple arrows punched into eyes, cheeks, open mouths. The giants howled and covered their faces with their enormous hands, which meant they weren't holding their weapons. Knights, targets are heart and throat. Charge. My knights activated their battle aura. Red energy blazed along their swords and lances like living fire. They spurred their horses into a full gallop, 53 crimson streaks converging on blinded, bleeding, kneeling giants. The first giant went down beautifully. Lances through the heart, sword across the throat. Blue blood fountained into the air. The massive body crashed to the ground with a thud that shook the valley floor. 1 down. But because nothing in my life goes perfectly smooth, giant number 3 decided to go full rage mode. This one was bigger than the others. Meaner. And apparently very attached to its legs, because when the rope net wrapped around them, it just flexed. The reinforced ropes snapped like wet noodles. Then it stomped once, and the entire trap zone cracked apart, stones flying everywhere. The trap failed. It broke free. The squad leader barely got the words out before the giant threw its arms wide and screamed at the sky. The blue fog around it suddenly intensified into a full-blown ice storm. The blast hit like a wall. Freezing wind, carrying razor-sharp ice shards, tore across the battlefield. 2 apprentice knights got caught directly. Their armor froze solid in seconds, turning them into human popsicles before the wind flung them into a rock wall. A full knight took a club swing to the chest and went flying like a rag doll, crashing 30 meters away, coughing blood. Things got ugly fast. But then Lambert showed up, and Lambert doesn't do ugly. A red slash of battle aura cut through the blizzard like a laser beam, slamming into the giant's wrist. The blazing sword energy tore open a gash in its arm. Deep blue blood sprayed out and instantly froze into crystals when it hit the snow. Looked almost pretty if you ignored the violence. "Go for the legs," Lambert roared. Two elite knights fell in behind him. Triangle assault formation, my personal favorite. 3 riders, 3 angles, 1 target. They hit the giant simultaneously. Lambert's massive sword buried itself in the back of the knee joint, cracking through ice armor and slicing into tendon. A second knight leaped from his horse and drove a fire aura lance into the giant's ribs. The third hacked at its ankle, destroying its balance entirely. 3 swords, 3 wounds. The giant went absolutely berserk, howling so loud it literally split the air, raising its club for one final apocalyptic swing. Lambert kicked off the ground, launched himself upward, and reverse slashed the giant's wrist. Crack. Bone breaking. Clear as a gunshot. The giant's fingers went limp. Its massive club slipped free and crashed to the ground, sending a wave of ice debris across the battlefield. Now, every remaining knight charged. Lances raised. War cries echoing. All weapons found their marks simultaneously. Heart, throat, joints, eyes. Blue blood painted the snow red. The last giant's enormous body swayed, trembled, and collapsed like a falling skyscraper, shaking the entire valley one final time. For giants down. Mine secured. Not bad for a Tuesday. The giants were down. For massive frozen corpses lying in the valley like the world's worst modern art installation. Blood everywhere, ice shards scattered around, and that metallic smell of battle hanging in the air. Not exactly a postcard moment. My soldiers jumped into cleanup mode while the knights checked on the wounded. And honestly, for a fight against 4 17-foot ice monsters, we got off pretty light. Most injuries were minor frostbite and scratches, the kind of stuff you fix with some ointment and a bandage. Our medics were hustling around, wrapping wounds and rubbing warming salve on frozen limbs. Efficient. Professional. I was proud. But then there was the one guy. The knight who got swatted by that berserk giant like a fly. He was lying on the ground looking bad. Really bad. Face white as the snow beneath him, blood trickling from his mouth. Chest armor completely caved in. His ribcage was visibly collapsed. Internal organs? Almost certainly wrecked. He was still breathing, but barely. Each breath sounded like it might be his last. The doctor knelt beside him, examined him for maybe 10 seconds, and looked up with that face doctors make when they don't want to say the words out loud. The injuries are too severe. Normal treatment can't save him. The knights around him went silent. This was their brother. 10 minutes ago he was fighting beside them, swinging his sword, screaming battle cries. Now he was dying in the snow. I walked over. Everyone looked up. He's not dying today. I reached into my coat and pulled out a small crystal bottle filled with deep green liquid that glowed faintly, a life potion. The real deal. These things are so expensive and rare that even high nobles hoard them like dragons sitting on gold. You do not use these unless someone is literally about to die. Well, someone was literally about to die. So, I knelt down. Yes, the Lord knelt in the dirt next to a common knight, and personally poured the potion into his mouth. The effect was like watching a miracle in slow motion. His breathing steadied. Color crept back into his ghost-white cheeks. His crushed chest slowly expanded back to its proper shape as bones knitted themselves together inside. Torn organs began to heal. His heartbeat, which had been fading like a dying candle, strengthened into a steady rhythm. He'll live, the doctor exhaled. How much he recovers long-term? That's up to fate. Good enough for me. But the looks I was getting from the knights around me, those were interesting. They stared at me like I'd just done something incomprehensible. In their world, a lord using a priceless life potion on a regular knight was like a CEO giving his personal Ferrari to an intern. It just doesn't happen. Loyalty meters. +1, +1, +1, +1. Lambert approached quietly. My lord, a potion like that. You shouldn't have wasted it on. Wasted? I cut him off. He fought for me. He bled for Crimson Tide. How is saving his life a waste? I looked around at every single face watching me. Anyone who fights for me, I will not abandon. That's not a slogan. That's a promise. Silence. Then every knight straightened their spine, placed their fists over their hearts, and bowed. No words. Just the knight's salute. Somehow that said more than any speech could. Now, here's the part one kept to myself. That potion, it was one of 3 that my sister, my real, full-blooded sister, had secretly slipped into my bags before I left for the north. 3 tiny bottles. Her way of saying, please don't die out there, you idiot. Potion 1. Used on Siv, the unconscious barbarian princess I fished out of the snow. Potion 2. Just poured into a knight with a caved-in chest. Potion 3. That's it. That's all I have left. My last life insurance policy. Did it hurt? Yeah. Each of those bottles could literally save my life someday. And I'd burned through 2/3 of my supply in the span of a week. One on a girl I barely knew, one on a soldier. Meanwhile, I, the actual lord of this territory, the guy everyone depends on, was down to my final emergency backup. But regret? No. Siv might prove valuable someday. And saving that night just bought me something money can't purchase. The absolute, unshakable loyalty of every soldier who witnessed it. They'd run through walls for me now. That's worth more than a potion. Last one stays with me, I muttered, tucking the empty bottle away. Try not to need it, Lewis. Time for rewards. Because I'm not the kind of lord who makes people fight giants and then says, good job, now get back to work. I stood before my troops and put on my serious face. Today we killed 4 frost giants. Every person here contributed. Most lords wouldn't bother with rewards after a battle like this, but I'm not most lords. You earned this. Dramatic pause. I sweep. Then I let my expression crack, just slightly. However, I think you all know by now that I am. How do I put this? Extremely broke. Silence. Then someone snorted. Then someone else laughed. Then the whole group was cracking up. But I continued over the laughter. A debt is a debt. The rewards were humble. Fresh fish, wild game, grain rations, and a handful of gold coins spread across everyone. Not exactly a king's ransom. But nobody complained. Not a single grumble. Because they understood something that most soldiers in this world never experience. Their lord sees them. He acknowledges what they did. He saves their wounded. And he promises that when things get better, more rewards will follow. In a world where most lords treat soldiers like disposable tools, that kind of treatment is worth more than gold. Serving you is our honor, they roared. May the dragon ancestor bless Crimson Tide. Now, the giant corpses. What do you do with 4 enormous dead ice monsters? Eating them was the obvious thought. We're in the food-scarce north, every calorie counts. But they're humanoid. They have faces, arms, hands. I stared at those massive bodies and my stomach said, absolutely not. We weren't that desperate. Not yet. Hopefully not ever. We're not eating them, I announced firmly. But wasting them felt wrong too. These things were packed with magical cold energy. Even dead, their flesh contained special nutrients and magical essence. Then it hit me. If we can't eat them, we'll farm with them. Turn the bodies into fertilizer. Lambert blinked, then slowly nodded. Giant blood and flesh, rich with magical compounds, processed into super compost that could transform our mediocre soil into something incredible. Send everything to Mick, I ordered. And so my soldiers loaded 4 enormous frozen corpses onto wooden platforms and dragged them home behind horses, like the world's most disturbing grocery delivery. Somewhere back at base, Mick was about to receive the weirdest fertilizer ingredients of his entire agricultural career. With the giant popsicles dealt with, the real prize was sitting right under our feet, the magic marrow mine. This stuff is incredibly rare. It's the core ingredient for explosive alchemical compounds, and deposits like this are so scarce you could count them on one hand across the entire Iron Blood Empire. The only reason nobody had found this one yet was because it was buried ridiculously deep. And the only reason I found it was because my cheat code intelligence system basically drew me a treasure map with a big flashing arrow. My knights set up a perimeter while a team of workers went in with pickaxes and basic safety gear. Careful, slow, methodical, we weren't rushing this. After a few layers of rock, there was a sharp metallic clink, and deep purple crystal peeked out from the stone, glowing faintly, pulsing with mysterious energy. Even the workers who had no idea what they were looking at went quiet for a second, sensing this wasn't ordinary rock. Take a small batch for now, I ordered. Enough for Hilko to test his magic soil recipe. Seal the rest. No massive mining operation yet. Proper extraction needs engineers, reinforced tunnels, refining specialists, none of which I currently had. I'd mentioned this in my letter to dear old dad. If he sent professionals, great. If not, I'd have to recruit from outside. Either way, the mine wasn't going anywhere. Patience. Fast forward a few weeks, and Crimson Tide was looking like an actual place instead of a frozen garbage dump. I stood on a hill overlooking the farmland and genuinely smiled. The fields that were bare dirt just weeks ago were now sprouting life. Rye shoots pushing through the soil, potato leaves unfurling, turnip seedlings swaying in the breeze like tiny green flags of victory. Not bad, I murmured. Not bad at all. Then I heard footsteps, heavy, nervous, guilty-sounding footsteps. The kind of footsteps a man makes when he's about to confess something. Mick came jogging up, looking like a kid who broke a window and was trying to figure out how to tell his parents. His face was doing that thing where it cycled between determination, terror, and nausea every half second. See, Mick had proposed to Tanya, successfully, but hadn't officially reported it to me yet. In his mind, as a former slave, marriage still required the master's permission. What if I said no? What if I got angry? What if I made him pay some kind of price? Poor guy had been stressing about this for days. He opened his mouth to start his carefully rehearsed speech, and I decided to absolutely destroy him. Mick, congratulations on the engagement. His face froze. His mouth stayed open. His brain visibly crashed and rebooted. He hadn't said anything yet. How did I know? Was I reading minds now? Was I actually a god? I could see the existential crisis happening in real time behind his eyes. Shock, fear, confusion, a brief moment where he probably questioned reality itself. His knees started to buckle. The man was about to drop into a full kowtow out of sheer panic. I grabbed his arm before he hit the ground. Mick, you're the chief of agriculture. Stop kneeling every time I talk to you. He straightened up, eyes watering, lips trembling, clearly trying to say something meaningful and profound. Instead, I handed him 2 smoked fish tied together with string. I'd even attempted a bow. It was crooked and sad-looking, but it was there. Wedding gift, I said casually. Things are tight right now, but I figured you deserved something. Mick stared at the fish, then at me, then at the fish again. Then this 40-something-year-old man who'd spent most of his life as a slave, who barely spoke, who communicated primarily through soil quality assessments. This man started crying. Not quiet, dignified tears. Full waterworks. Dripping onto the smoked fish. Making the bow soggy. He'd expected punishment. Maybe a fee. Possibly rejection. Instead, he got a congratulations, a gift, and a lopsided ribbon. His entire worldview was short-circuiting. Stop crying, I said, patting his shoulder. This is supposed to be happy news. He nodded frantically, sniffling, wiping his face with dirty farmer hands, which just smeared mud across his tears. Adorable disaster. Okay, emotion's over. I need to talk business. Mick snapped to attention like a switch had been flipped. Yes, SIR. Turn around. He turned, and then made a noise I can only describe as a man's soul leaving his body and coming back. 4 enormous frost giant corpses were lying at the edge of the farmland. Hacked apart, melting, dark blue flesh exposed, each one the size of a small building. They looked like someone had dumped 4 frozen whales on his fields. What? What are those? Your new fertilizer ingredients. Fertilizer, he nearly bit his own tongue off. In his entire farming career, which was extensive and impressive, nobody had ever suggested composting frost giants. Their muscle tissue is loaded with minerals and magical energy, I explained, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Process them right, and our crops could get a serious boost. Mick's mouth twitched. I could see his professional farmer brain wrestling with his "this is insane" brain. The farmer brain won. He started mentally calculating decomposition rates and nutrient extraction methods before he'd even finished being shocked. But before he could recover, I hit him with round 2. I pulled a small cloth bag from my coat and handed it over with the kind of reverence usually reserved for holy relics. These 2. Mick opened the bag and looked inside. Small reddish-brown seeds. Looked ordinary. Frost blood crimson berry seeds, I said. Each one is worth a few hundred gold coins. Mick's hands started shaking so violently, I was worried he'd spill them. A few hundred gold coins per seed. 1 seed could buy hundreds of slaves. And he was holding a whole bag of them in his dirt-caked farmer fingers. You want me to grow these? You're the best farmer I've got. I trust you. His face went through 17 emotions in 2 seconds. I gave him the planting instructions. Bury them in ice first to activate dormancy. Then we'd transplant into special acidic magic soil once Hilko finished the recipe. I won't let a single seed get damaged. He practically screamed, cradling the bag like a newborn baby. This man had received a wedding congratulations, 2 fish with an ugly bow, for giant corpses, and seeds worth more than his entire life, all in the span of 5 minutes. Emotionally, he was probably done for the week. Then a guard came running up. "My lord, the girl we rescued. She's awake." SIV was conscious. Finally, time to go meet the barbarian princess I'd spent a very expensive life potion on. Let's see if that investment was about to pay off. The guard told me SIV was awake, so I headed over. But let me set the scene from what I pieced together later, because apparently the girl had a whole internal drama happening before I even walked through the door. She woke up in a wooden cabin, wrapped in warm blankets, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling. No chains, no weapons, just a cozy room with a fireplace crackling away. Sounds nice, right? But SIV's brain immediately went full survival mode, scanning the room for threats, exits, potential weapons disguised as furniture. The girl woke up from a near-death coma, and her first instinct was tactical assessment. Respect. Then the memories hit her. The tribe, the massacre, her family butchered one by one, her brother Seagull sacrificing himself so she could escape, all of it crashing back like a tidal wave. She squeezed her eyes shut, chest tight, grief crushing her from the inside. But instead of breaking down, she gritted her teeth and thought, "At least I'm alive. I can still get revenge." 14 years old, lost everything, can barely move, lying in a stranger's bed in enemy territory, and her first coherent thought is vengeance. This kid was built different. Then the door opened, and in walked a middle-aged woman with a tray of porridge and warm water. Not exactly the terrifying captor SIV was expecting. The woman, one of our local caretakers, saw SIV's eyes open and lit up like a grandmother at Christmas. "Oh goodness, you're finally awake. You poor thing. You've been out for days." She propped SIV up against a pillow, held a cup of water to her cracked lips, and started chattering away like they were old friends. SIV drank cautiously. Smart girl, testing for poison probably, while the woman rambled on about how lucky SIV was that our Lord had sent people to rescue her from the wilderness. That word, Lord, made SIV's blood freeze. A Southern noble? An imperial aristocrat? Every horror story she'd ever heard about the Iron Blood Empire came flooding back. In her culture, Southern nobles were conniving, bloodthirsty monsters who enslaved northern tribes for sport, liars who used sweet words before crushing you under their boots. And now she was in one's house, eating his food, wearing his blankets, completely helpless. Her internal panic was apparently intense. She immediately started strategizing, hide her identity at all costs. If this lord discovered she was the Cold Moon Princess, she'd become a political bargaining chip, or worse, shipped off to some imperial court as a trophy. Running was impossible. She could barely lift her arms. So she settled on Plan B, fake obedience. Play the grateful rescued girl. Watch, learn, wait for a chance to escape. Meanwhile, the caretaker woman was absolutely not helping SIV's anxiety by cheerfully saying things like, "Our Lord is wonderful. He's so kind. He saves injured slaves. He takes care of refugees." In SIV's mind, this translated to, "This man is so good at manipulation that even his servants are brainwashed." Fair assessment, honestly. From the outside, I probably do look suspiciously competent at winning hearts and minds. Then came my grand entrance. SIV heard footsteps outside. The guard announced me. She physically tensed under the blankets, clenching the fabric so hard her knuckles went white, holding her breath like she was preparing for combat. She had mentally prepared herself to face the worst possible version of an imperial noble. She was expecting a fat, greasy, middle-aged man dripping with gaudy gold jewelry, reeking of overpowering perfume, looking at her with creepy eyes and a cruel smile. She'd already rehearsed her responses. If he humiliated her, she'd play submissive. If he threatened her, she'd stay silent. If he tried anything, she'd wait for the right moment to strike. She had an entire action movie plotted out in her head. Then I walked in, and her whole screenplay fell apart, because instead of the perfumed pigman she'd imagined, she got me. A 20-something guy in clean, simple clothes. No ridiculous gold accessories. No overpowering cologne. No menacing aura. Just a tall, reasonably put-together young man who looked more like a college student than a tyrant. I could actually see her brain malfunction in real time. Her eyes went wide for just a fraction of a second. Wait, that's the Lord? Moment, before she caught herself and forced her face back to neutral. Everything she'd been taught about imperial nobles told her I should be fat, old, cruel, and disgusting. Instead, she got someone who looked like he occasionally forgot to eat lunch because he was too busy reading census reports. But credit to SIV, she recovered fast. I watched her eyes narrow almost imperceptibly as she recalculated. New theory. This guy is worse than the obvious villains because he's better at hiding it. The pretty face, the calm demeanor, the modest clothes. Clearly a more sophisticated predator. A wolf in sheep's clothing. She wasn't entirely wrong about the calculated part. I am strategic about how I present myself. But the evil predator conclusion was a bit harsh. I literally spent a life potion on this girl. Those things don't grow on trees. She lowered her eyes and went quiet. Classic defensive posture. Watch everything, reveal nothing. Her fingers stayed curled tight in the blankets, ready to react to anything. I stood in the doorway for a moment, studying her. White hair, sharp features, wounds still healing, eyes that were pretending to be submissive but were actually scanning me like a hawk evaluating a threat. This girl was no helpless victim. Even lying in bed half dead, she radiated a stubborn, dangerous energy. Interesting. So there we were. Me, knowing exactly who she was. Cold Moon Princess, political refugee, potential future asset. And her, thinking I was a sneaky imperial villain who'd rescued her for some dark ulterior motive. Two people in one room, both hiding what they knew, both calculating their next move. This was going to be fun. The room was dead quiet except for the fireplace doing its crackly thing. I stood by the bed and got my first proper look at our rescued barbarian princess. Silver-white short hair, messy from days of unconsciousness. Deep blue eyes with that mysterious northern intensity. Skin paler than any imperial person, with that cold climate undertone. She looked thin and fragile at first glance, but underneath I could see lean muscle hiding, like a leopard pretending to be a house cat. Even lying in bed half dead, her eyes had this guarded, defiant look. Not scared, calculating. This girl was not going to be easy. "What's your name?" I asked. Silence. She just stared at me like I was a piece of furniture she hadn't decided whether to trust. "Where are you from?" "Nothing." The blue eyes didn't even blink. "Where were you headed?" Firelight flickered across her perfectly blank face. She might as well have been a statue. A very pretty, very stubborn statue that was clearly plotting something behind those eyes. The caretaker woman sighed and patted SIV's hand gently. "Oh, sweetie, don't be scared. Everyone here is nice. The Lord saved your life. He won't hurt you." Meanwhile, I could practically hear SIV's brain running at full speed behind that poker face. She was trying to figure out what to say without revealing anything. Making up a fake identity was risky. I might catch her in a lie. Dodging questions would look suspicious. So she chose the nuclear option. Say absolutely nothing and let me draw my own conclusions. Smart girl. Wrong move, though, because I already knew everything about her. But she didn't know that. So I played along. I put on my best thoughtful face, rubbed my chin for dramatic effect, and said, "You must have lost your memory." I watched her eyes flicker, genuine surprise. She hadn't expected me to hand her a perfect excuse on a silver platter. She didn't confirm it, didn't deny it, just lowered her gaze slightly, which was basically barbarian princess body language for, "Sure, let's go with that." Beautiful. Two people pretending. Her pretending she didn't remember anything. Me pretending I believed her. A perfect little dance of mutual deception. Then I looked at her white hair and decided to have some fun. "Since you can't remember your name, I'll give you one. Your hair is white, so I'll call you Whitey." The instant those words left my mouth, I saw it. A microscopic twitch in her expression. Her pupils contracted. Her fingers curled into the blankets so hard the fabric stretched. If looks could kill, and she was clearly restraining one, I would have been a smoking crater. Whitey. I just named a tribal princess after a house pet. A girl who was raised as royalty, educated in combat and politics, told from birth that she carried the noble bloodline of the Cold Moon dynasty. and I slapped her with a name you'd give a stray cat. Did I know this would infuriate her? Of course I did. Was it strategic? Partly. If she reacted, it would confirm she had pride above her station, meaning she wasn't a random commoner. But mostly it was just really funny watching her try not to explode. She bit down on her anger like a champion. Not a single word. Not a flinch. Just white-knuckled blanket death grip, and what I'm fairly sure was internal screaming loud enough to shatter glass. Oh, she definitely filed that one away for future revenge. I could feel it. Somewhere in her brain, a little notebook had opened up with the title, Reasons to Destroy This Southern Barbarian, and entry number 1 was, Called Me Whitey. Then I casually dropped another question. Can you read and write? She nodded before she could stop herself. Instant, automatic, natural, the response of someone who's been literate their whole life. Then I saw her freeze as she realized what she'd just revealed. In the northern tribes, only nobility gets educated. A random lost girl shouldn't know how to read imperial script. She'd just accidentally told me she was important. She glanced at me quickly, trying to read my reaction. Did he notice? Does he suspect? I kept my face totally neutral. Absolutely zero indication that I'd caught anything. Just a casual nod, like her answer was completely unremarkable. Great. You can be my secretary then. Secretary? First word she'd spoken to me. And it was pure confusion, because this word didn't exist in tribal vocabulary. Progress. You know, help me write things down, organize paperwork, handle small tasks. Nothing dangerous. Nothing hard. I watched her process this. Secretary. Not prisoner. Not slave. Not interrogation subject. Just an office assistant. Her eyebrows did this tiny dance of surprise before settling back into careful neutrality. She was weighing her options. She had none, and she knew it. Her body was wrecked. She didn't know the terrain, and she had nowhere to go. Fighting was suicide. Running was suicide. But being a secretary meant staying close to the person in charge, observing everything, learning the layout, waiting for the right moment. She nodded. Barely. The smallest possible nod that still counted as agreement. I smiled and stood up. Rest first. We'll start when you's better. I walked out without looking back. The moment that door closed behind me, I grinned. That went perfectly. Let me break down what just happened from my side. Since SIV thinks she's the clever one here. She's hiding her identity? I've known who she was since before I rescued her. My intelligence system gave me her full background. Name, title, tribe, family history, the whole package. Her little amnesia act was adorable, but completely unnecessary. She thinks she's playing me? Sweetheart, I literally orchestrated a fake hunting trip, timed to the hour, specifically to save your life before a bear ate you. You are currently alive because I read a notification about your scheduled death and decided to intervene. You're not playing chess with me. You're a chess piece that thinks it's a player. But here's the thing. I don't need to confront her. She's on my territory, under my roof, eating my food. If I ever need to use her cold moon princess status for political leverage, I don't even need her permission. The card is already in my hand whether she knows it or not. For now, she's most useful exactly where I put her, as a secretary. She can read and write, which means Hilko finally gets some relief from his soul-crushing paperwork mountain. The man was going to die of exhaustion if I didn't get him help soon. And honestly, having a white-haired mystery girl around the office was going to make the daily grind significantly more scenic. I'm building a civilization in a frozen wasteland. I deserve at least one aesthetic upgrade in my work environment. I strolled over to the craftsman's workshop with a spring in my step. Time to talk to Mac about something I'd been planning for weeks. Building an actual castle. Crimson Tide had come insanely far. Those semi-underground communal houses I designed were popping up everywhere like mushrooms after rain. Knights had private rooms. Soldiers shared in pairs. Free citizens got 3 to a room. Slaves bunked 6 together. Married couples could even apply for their own place. By northern standards, this was luxury housing. Nobody would freeze to death this winter, which in the north was basically a miracle. But houses weren't enough anymore. The foundation was solid. The people were fed, sheltered, and motivated. It was time to build something that said, we're not just surviving, we're here to stay. Time to build a castle. The workshop smelled like sweat, sawdust, and ambition. Hammers clanging, saws buzzing, apprentices running around like caffeinated squirrels. The whole place was humming like a well-oiled machine. Crimson Tide's industrial sector was actually starting to look like a real operation. I nodded with satisfaction as I walked through. My little frozen wasteland was growing up so fast. I found Mac in the back, hammering a piece of wood with intense concentration. Which was funny, because I'm about 90% sure he'd been slacking off 30 seconds ago and grabbed the hammer when he heard me coming. Classic, look busy, the boss is here move. Respect the hustle, Mac. He dropped the act the second I got close. My lord, what brings you here? No small talk. Straight to business. It's time to build a castle. Mac's eyes lit up like I'd just told him Christmas was coming early. The man lived for construction. Building stuff was his oxygen. A castle? He practically vibrated with excitement. My lord, give me 50 years and I'll build you the biggest, most magnificent fortress in the entire Iron Blood Empire. I stared at him. 50 years? I'll be 70. You'll probably be dead. Mac laughed like this was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Then my apprentices finish it. And if they die, my apprentices' apprentices carry on. My eye twitched. Are you seriously pitching me a multi-generational construction project right now? What are you, the guy from that old fable who tried to move a mountain one shovel at a time? Children and grandchildren, endless and infinite. Who's that guy? Mac asked, scratching his head. Nobody. Forget it. Listen, we don't have 50 years. We don't have 10. I need this castle built fast. Defense is the priority. Strong walls, functional design, something that can actually protect us. I pulled out the castle blueprints I'd drawn up myself. Detailed annotations everywhere, defensive positions, living quarters, storage, guard towers, the works. I'd spent real time on this. 80% defense, 20% livability, I explained, pointing at the key sections. We are not sacrificing protection for comfort. This isn't a vacation home. It's a fortress. Max studied the blueprints carefully. His excited expression slowly morphed into something more uncomfortable, like a doctor about to deliver bad news. My lord, this design is incredible, but a stone castle like this? Minimum 10 years. With this level of complexity? 30 to 40 years, honestly, my brain short-circuited. 10? 30 to 40. I designed what I thought was an efficient, no-nonsense fortress. And this man was telling me it would take longer than some people's entire careers. I'd be an old man shuffling through my own castle going, finally, the bathroom is done. Mac gave me an apologetic shrug. We just don't have the workers or the technology to go faster. That's the reality. The reality sucked. Because reality was also this. The Cold Moon tribe was in chaos now, but eventually someone would unite them and come south looking for trouble. There were Glacier Beastmen further north. Snow Kingdom rebels lurking around. Threats were piling up like a highway pileup, and every single one of them was a dump truck barreling straight at my unprotected settlement. I didn't have decades. I might not even have years. Is there a faster alternative? I asked desperately. Mac hemmed and hawed, looked at his hammer, looked at his workers, looked at the ceiling for divine inspiration, and then gave me the most unhelpful answer in construction history. I never went to school. Don't really have creative ideas. Thanks, Mac. Super helpful. Fine, I sighed. I'll figure it out myself. I closed my eyes and started flipping through my mental library of architecture from my previous life. Stone castles, too slow. European fortresses, too expensive. Japanese keeps, wrong materials. Everything was either too complex, too resource-heavy, or too time-consuming. Not good enough, not fast enough, I muttered, cycling through options like a frustrated Netflix user who can't find anything to watch. Then it hit me, like a lightning bolt to the brain. Tulu, Mac jumped. Bless you. No, Tulu. It's a building. A round fortress. I was already grabbing a pen and scribbling furiously over my original blueprints. Tulu, the Hakka earthen buildings from back home on Earth. Built by people fleeing wars who needed protection fast. Circular walls, incredibly strong, could house hundreds of people inside, and the best part? They were made primarily from compressed earth and clay. Cheap and quick to build. They were literally called Eastern Ancient Castles for a reason, and they were exactly what Crimson Tide needed. I redesigned the entire castle in minutes, turning my fancy stone fortress into a massive cylindrical structure. Mac watched over my shoulder with growing concern. It's a bit plain, he said diplomatically. Not much beauty to it. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost saw my own brain. Beauty? Mac, beauty doesn't stop arrows. Beauty doesn't keep frost giants out. You know what's beautiful? Not dying. That's gorgeous. That's a masterpiece. He winced but shut up as I launched into my explanation. Round structure distributes external force evenly, making it incredibly hard to breach. Earth and clay construction, low cost, fast building speed, fraction of the resources a stone castle needs. We can have this up in months instead of decades. Max started nodding slowly, his builder brain overriding his aesthetic objections. Then I hit him with the real genius part. Location, near the hot springs. Not too close. We don't want to boil, but close enough to tap into geothermal heat. We run hot spring water through pipes under the floors. The whole building gets natural heating. In winter, your feet are warm just standing inside. It's basically a giant heated floor system powered by nature. The craftsmen around us were staring at me like I'd just invented fire for the second time. Heated floors? Using hot spring water? In the north? Their brains were visibly expanding. Outer wall, 1 meter thick, stone base with hot spring clay packed on top, formed into a circular barrier. Inner structure, wooden frame residential units built in a ring. Giant timber pillars, reinforced crossbeams, multiple floors. First floor is storage. Floors 2 through 4 are living quarters. Staircases made from carved tree trunks. Simple, sturdy, fast to build. I sketched the cross-section on the blueprint. The thick protective outer ring, the inner residential donut, the central courtyard. It looked like a giant barrel from above. Not pretty, not elegant, but functional, and buildable within a timeline that didn't require my grandchildren to finish the job. Max studied the revised design for a long moment, his expert eyes scanning every detail. I could see the exact moment his skepticism turned into respect. It was ugly. It was unconventional, but it was going to work. And it was going to work fast. I wrapped up my castle presentation like a man pitching a startup to very confused investors. Iron-plated front gate, blocks, swords, and fire attacks. Arrow slits along the top of the stone wall so our archers can shoot without exposing themselves. And my personal favorite, I tapped the blueprint with a grin, hidden boiling oil ports on the roof. Enemies try to climb? We dump scalding hot oil on their heads. Surprise dinner, except they're the main course. The craftsman stared at me like I'd just revealed the secret to eternal life. So to summarize, I slapped the paper one final time, stone ring for the base, pack it with clay and turf, wooden frame on the inside, hot spring pipes for heating, and boom, Tulu Fortress, done. Dead silence. Then someone in the back whispered, "The Lord is a genius." Max studied the design for a long, thoughtful moment. The builder in him was wrestling with the innovator in him. Finally, he nodded slowly. It's doable. Construction time. Maybe under 6 months. Possibly faster. But I can't guarantee success. This has literally never been built before. It's completely new. Figure out the technical details, I said, patting his shoulder. That's what I pay you for. Well, that's what I would pay you for if I had money. The workshop erupted into excited chatter. Craftsmen huddled together, pointing at the blueprints, arguing about load-bearing walls and clay ratios. The energy was electric. If this worked, Crimson Tide would have a real defensive structure, something that could actually withstand an attack instead of hoping enemies would politely knock first. The Tulu project was officially a go. Now, while all of this was happening up in my frozen corner of the world, something very interesting was going down thousands of miles south. I wouldn't learn the details until later, but let me paint the picture because it's honestly hilarious. My father, Duke Calvin, was having a completely ordinary morning in his massive estate. He did his morning exercise, got dressed in probably absurdly expensive clothes, and sat down in his study to tackle a mountain of correspondence. Land disputes, economic reports, noble marriage proposals, political headaches, the usual rich and powerful guy stuff. Then he spotted a letter sealed with the Calvin family crest. Sender, Louis Calvin. He stared at it, blinked, thought about it. Louis. He actually had to think about who I was. His own son. He literally paused and searched his memory banks like I was a forgotten password. To be fair to the old man, he had 22 children, 10 daughters, 12 sons, and 2 more on the way. His reproductive strategy was basically quantity over quality. If I make enough kids, statistically some of them will be useful. And honestly, it worked. His firstborn, Gaius, was already vice commander of the Imperial Dragonblood Knights. Total golden child. Probably going to inherit everything. And then there was me. Child number. Whatever I was. The one with the dead mother and mediocre talent, whom he'd shipped off to the frozen north a few months ago to satisfy the Emperor's frontier development quota. Basically the human equivalent of a placeholder submission. He probably assumed my letter was a desperate, "Please let me come home" plea. The kind of whiny, homesick message you'd expect from a pampered noble kid dumped in the wilderness. He almost didn't open it. But he did. And what he found was not what he expected. First, a calm, professional status update. Arrived safely. Territory operations running smoothly. No begging. No crying. Just facts. That alone probably surprised him. Then, the bombshell. I discovered massive deposits of cold iron ore and, here's the kicker, magic marrow. In MY territory. The same ultra-rare mineral that the entire Iron Blood Empire had barely any of, that was mainly found in the Emerald Federation. Just casually sitting under my frozen wasteland. The Duke actually laughed out loud. This kid stepped in the luckiest pile of dung in Imperial history. He absolutely did not believe I'd found it through skill or intelligence. Pure dumb luck, in his mind. Which, to be honest, was technically correct. My intelligence system found it, not my geological expertise. But luck or not, the math was obvious. A territory with magic marrow was suddenly worth investing in. Then came my requests, and this is where I apparently earned my first genuine flicker of respect from dear old Dad. He'd expected me to ask for luxuries, fine wine, gourmet food, pretty women, comfortable furniture. The typical spoiled noble wish list. Instead, I asked for construction engineers, mining specialists, grain, seeds, livestock, and a bloodstone, a rare mineral used to test whether someone has the potential to become a knight. Practical, strategic, zero nonsense. This boy might be smarter than I thought, the Duke reportedly murmured. Coming from a man who'd forgotten my name 5 minutes earlier, that was practically a standing ovation. Now here's where politics entered the equation. Apparently, the Emperor had been cracking down on old noble families lately, systematically weakening the traditional power houses while elevating new ones. The political landscape was getting messy and unpredictable. Even Duke Calvin, one of the most powerful men in the empire, was feeling the squeeze. Having a foothold in the north suddenly looked less like a throwaway gesture and more like a potential escape route. A seed planted in distant soil, growing quietly while the storms raged in the capital. Not a full commitment. The Duke was way too calculating for that, but a hedge, a backup plan wearing my face. He called in his head butler, an old veteran named Bradley. Handed him my letter. Go to the north personally. Verify the magic marrow claim. If the boy is lying, I want to know immediately. And obviously, keep the mine secret. If word gets out, every vulture in the empire will come circling. Bradley nodded without complaint. The man had probably been sent to worse places. I'll provide limited support, the Duke continued. A few experienced builders and architects. A small knight squad for military reinforcement. Some funding, food, tools, seeds, and livestock. Nothing extravagant. Consider it a test. He paused, his expression hardening slightly. If Lewis proves capable, the family invests more. If he shows any sign of incompetence, we pull everything back immediately. Bradley, you're my eyes there. Monitor everything. Report directly to me. Understood, my lord. The Duke walked to his window and gazed north, toward the frozen horizon he'd never visited and probably never would. Lewis, don't disappoint me. Touching, right? Father of the Year material. The man couldn't remember my name 10 minutes ago, and now he was dramatically staring out a window delivering a one-liner like he was in a movie. But you know what? I didn't care about the sentimentality. What mattered was the result. Builders, knights, money, food, seeds, livestock, and a bloodstone. Daddy's care package was coming to Crimson Tide, and I was going to make every single coin count.